Chapter 561, The Secrets of Thunder Techniques. Li Qingheng followed Shen Yanqing down to a small mountaintop where an old man sat, wearing a broad-brimmed hat and sporting a long, fine white beard. He held a fishing rod, casting it into the sea of clouds below. Li Qingheng subtly looked away. The man on creek was the first Purple Mansion Realm Life divine ability that the Li family had encountered, and it had left a deep impression on her. The sight of the fishing rod made her uneasy, so she avoided looking at it. The old man, however, called out to her, "Who goes there?" Shen Yanqing pressed her lips together in a smile, preserving his dignity in front of a guest, and replied, "Senior Ling Yanzi, she is a member of the Li family." "Oh," Ling Yanzi suddenly jumped up, his fishing rod clattering to the ground as he hastily put it away with an awkward expression. "I thought it might finally be a disciple." Li Qingheng of Mount Qingdu greets the elder. She cupped her fist and said respectfully. Ling Yanzi, now at the mid-stage of Foundation Establishment Realm, raised an eyebrow as he studied her and sighed with regret. What a pity about Taoist Tangya. I was in seclusion then and could not pay my respects. By the time I emerged, I was unable to leave the sect at will. Truly unfortunate. Li Qingheng was not sure if he was sincere or just making excuses, so she responded politely. Shen Yanqing, understanding the situation, quietly withdrew. Ling Yanzi led Li Qingheng inside where they sat together, and he chuckled as he spoke. "Your family once saved my life, a debt that remains vivid in my memory. I never thought that 70 or 80 years would pass, and now even his descendants have reached the Foundation Establishment Realm." He glanced at her and then, seeming to catch something that alarmed him, quickly rose to shut the door to the cave dwelling. Only then, in a nervous tone, did he ask, "Fellow Taoist, Qingheng, are you cultivating the Purple Thunder secret origin technique?" Not understanding his concern, Li Qingheng answered slowly, "Yes, that is correct." Ling Yanzi looked thoroughly shaken, cautiously asking, "Has anyone been told that you obtained this technique from me?" Li Qingheng answered in a low voice, "Of course, I have not mentioned it to anyone." "But what is this all about? Thank goodness." Ling Yanzi exhaled with relief, whispering, "If anyone ever brings it up, you absolutely must not say you got it from me. It would be the death of me." Sensing that something was amiss, Li Qingheng fixed him with a serious look and asked, "What exactly is the matter with this technique? Please explain everything." Ling Yanzi sighed miserably and replied, "You have no idea. Back then I was young and clueless, completely ignorant of the weight behind Thundercloud Temple." He began to recount his tale. "I was just a mid-level Qi cultivator back then, born a commoner with no backing in the sect. I was looking for an opportunity and recklessly ventured out to the Eastern Sea, traveling aimlessly until I reached the Kunyi Straits in the southeast. There, I stumbled upon an underwater ruin. I must have triggered some hidden mechanism because I suddenly found myself in a grotto heaven." "A grotto heaven?" Li Qingheng looked at him in surprise, shooting him a skeptical glance. Ling Yanzi, seeing her doubt, grumbled, "Do not look at me like that. I am telling you, I have no thread of fate on me, pure coincidence. That grotto heaven was filled with lightning everywhere. I did not realize what it was at the time, and being as timid as I was, did not dare touch anything. I only picked up a few scraps in a nearby pavilion and left in a hurry." With a face full of regret, he muttered, "Foolish, absolutely foolish. I have been bottling this up for almost 100 years, not daring to tell anyone, not even a Taoist master." Li Qingheng nodded, still unsure, and asked gently, "How did you manage to deceive a Taoist master?" "Listen, let me finish the story," Ling Yanzi continued. "After leaving Kunyi, I flew all the way into the heart of Yue State, where I ran into those two bumbling outsiders from Chengxiao Gate. They got fixated on my purple smoke spirit shield and chased me relentlessly. I was almost run to the ground." Ling Yanzi recounted, "Eventually, I joined your grandfather and we dealt with them, killing them both and disposing of their bodies. When I flew back to the sect to ask about that grotto heaven, what had been only a few months inside the grotto turned out to be 10 years in the outside world." Li Qingheng was left speechless, and Ling Yanzi could only manage a wry smile, adding quietly, "The scariest part, though, was that after that, no one could accurately divine my whereabouts. The Chengxiao Gate simply dropped the matter, unable to trace it back to me. Taoist Master Zimu even tried to divine my whereabouts himself, but he could not figure it out. He said I was entangled with some higher power, making it impossible to track me through divine ability, so he let me stay here in the sect, whiling my days away in the mountains." Li Qingheng studied him closely, her mind racing over his words. "You mean to say that this Purple Thunder secret origin technique of mine other than you and a few people in my family, nobody knows where it came from, and nobody else has ever cultivated it?" "Precisely." Ling Yanzi admitted with a hint of relief, letting out a rueful chuckle. I never dared tell the Taoist master. His divine abilities are so powerful that, if he found out I had been involved with a grotto heaven, he would have torn me apart. So I just dragged it on, day by day. Li Qinghong eyed him thoughtfully, then her gaze wandered over the empty space in the cave. Startled, she whispered, since you know how highly the Taoist master regards you, and since an old friend has come to visit. How do you know he has not crossed through the great void and is now hidden within this formation, listening to us? Ling Yanzi's expression froze, his wide, old eyes staring at her, then he laughed weakly. Huh. Realizing the possibility, he broke into a cold sweat, his face pale as he waved his hand. No, my nerves cannot handle that kind of scare. He spluttered, then he explained, there was trouble over the Eastern Sea, so all the Taoist masters went there. Otherwise, I would not dare speak about this. Besides, if a Taoist master did know, would we still be sitting here calmly? He would have already revealed himself and dragged me away. He continued in a low voice, the Taoist master does not actually regard me that highly. There are others like me, too. Compared to Liu Changdi, the troublemaker, my importance is like a firefly next to the moon. I was somewhat valued in my earlier years, but now they treat me like someone who once accidentally met a Golden Core Realm cultivator, then gradually forgot all about me. Li Tongya had repeatedly warned about Liu Changdi. Although, at that time, the Li family members did not yet understand the concept of fate, the Li family knew he was anything but ordinary, so Li Qinghong was not too surprised by this. She wiped the sweat from her forehead, casting a wary glance around the empty cave before muttering, it looks like you have given my family quite a mess to clean up. If anything goes wrong with you, it could drag me down with it. The allure of a grotto heaven thunder technique was strong enough to make Purple Smoke Gate's Taoist masters disregard any backing behind the Li family. They might even reach out to Xiao Shooting, drawing him into the fray and dividing the grotto's resources. As for Li Qinghong, who had cultivated this secret technique, and Ling Yanzi, who had ventured into the grotto heaven, their best possible outcome would be to return unharmed. Perhaps, if she relied on Xiao Shooting, Li Qinghong could gain a minor benefit, but the risks were enormous. If this group of Purple Mansion Realm cultivators decided to open the grotto heaven, Li Qinghong and Ling Yanzi would find themselves in the eye of the storm. The thought alone revealed the extreme danger they faced, filling both of them with lingering fear. Ling Yanzi fell silent, and Li Qinghong too held her tongue. They exchanged glances, neither daring to speak further. After a few moments, Li Qinghong steadied herself and murmured, "This thunder technique came to me thanks to my grandfather's thread of fate. It was by pure chance that I obtained it. Back when I saved you, all I received in return was a handful of spirit stones, and this token that allowed our family's younger members to join the Purple Smoke Gate. Yes, exactly." Ling Yanzi quickly nodded, his deferential posture making him look like a junior, adding, "Qinghong speaks the truth." Chapter 562, Severing the Phenomena I. Li Qinghong and Ling Yanzi discussed recent events. Ling Yanzi, unassuming and without any airs, stroked his white beard and chuckled, "I must ask, does your clan perhaps have any younger disciples of appropriate age and talent who might come to my peak for cultivation? I am bound to the sect and cannot leave, and disciples on my peak have always been few. The lineage is at risk of being lost." Qinghong nodded, "I will remember your offer. Once I return to the clan, I will see if there is anyone suitable," she said with a nod. Not wanting to linger any longer, she bid farewell to Ling Yanzi and rose into the air, only to find Shen Yanqing waiting in the clouds outside. Shen Yanqing smiled brightly and said softly, "I will escort you out." Stepping onto her purple-blue flying shuttle, she added, "My Shen family has long admired your clan's reputation. If there is ever an opportunity, my father and I would be honored to visit." "That would be wonderful," Li Qinghong replied with a warm smile. They chatted lightly as Shen Yanqing accompanied her to the boundary of the Purple Smoke Gate, gesturing ahead. To the east is Crimson Reef Island's territory, and to the north lies Snowjai Gate. They had reached the Eastern Sea. Although Crimson Reef Island was an Eastern Sea sect, it also occupied several coastal ports in Yue State. Li Qinghong bade her farewell and flew northward. After seeing Li Qinghong off, Shen Yanqing herself flew back into the purple smoke-blessed land. Traveling inward, she soon reached the central peak, Purple Chi Mountain, and landed on a purple jade platform guarded by two elderly men on either side. Upon seeing Shen Yanqing, both men cupped their fists and greeted her, smiling, "Young mistress." Though Shen Yanqing was young, as a disciple of Taoist Master Zaipai, her standing in the purple smoke-blessed land was significant. She returned their greetings before stepping inside. Thick purple smoke filled the cave dwelling, tinged with streaks of golden light that cast everything in shades of purple and gold. Shen Yanqing looked up and saw her master, a woman in a purple-gold robe who appeared to be around 20 years old. Her brow was adorned with a shining mark of purple light. "Master," Shen Yanqing greeted, bowing deeply. This woman was indeed Taoist Master Zaipai, who gave a slight nod in acknowledgement. "As expected, it is celestial thunder, and they have taken in no blood qi," she commented, her voice cool. Shen Yanqing answered respectfully, "That is correct, Master." Taoist Master Zaipai gave a gentle nod, saying, "I recently visited the Eastern Sea. Dongfeng Yu failed to break through to Golden Core realm and perished, his years of accumulated power dissipated. In the end, he was only a single step away, yet 9 portions of converging water essence were drawn down, of which 6 were claimed by the dragon kin." Taoist Master Zepe continued, "With converging water gone awry, the Eastern Sea is now experiencing a celestial phenomenon known as falling water rising storm, making it a prime time for cultivating thunder techniques. The Jiangnan region, with its profound balance atmosphere, is not ideal for you. After your breakthrough, you should head to the Eastern Sea to cultivate and expand your experience." Shen Yanqing hesitated briefly, then asked, "But if he was only 1 step away, would these signs not be comparable to those left by Taoist Master Donghua in ancient times? Would profound balance atmosphere in Jiangnan not be disrupted by the Eastern Sea's influence?" Taoist Master Zaipai gently shook her head and spoke in a warm tone. "The Yue cultivating sect used the events of Taoist Master Kai Wei's death and the Eastern Fire's descent to adjust the spiritual energies in Jiangnan to align with the profound balance atmosphere, so that cultivation of Golden Core realm techniques like Jade True would be more feasible. They will not stand by idly and let the spiritual energies here shift again." She changed the topic, drawing a bright purple crystalline stone from her sleeve, which sparkled with streaks of violet and white lightning. In a soft voice she said, "We found 2 profound thunderstones while journeying through Quinee. Crimson Reef Island took one, and I kept this one. Keep it close. It will greatly aid your progress toward the Purple Mansion realm." Shen Yanqing bowed in thanks, and Taoist Master Zaipai chuckled softly, dismissing the young woman. Standing alone in a haze of purple-gold mist, her brow mark glowed softly with purple light. The purple qi before her flowed swiftly, converging into a river that clashed and whirled. She murmured to herself, "With the profound balance atmosphere, the Yue cultivating sect will have to act. It will be interesting to see how far that true monarch has come." In those days, he leveraged the shifting tides of Liang's fall and Zhao's rise to ascend to fruition attainment. He must be formidable indeed. As Li Qinghong passed by Snow Jai Gate, she saw that the mountain was sealed off, declining visitors. Flying directly over it would be disrespectful, so she circled around it. Snow Jai Gate has been in seclusion for 80 out of the last 100 years, rarely revealing any disciples. It is strange. Rumor has it their line nearly broke a few centuries ago, but surely that would not justify this level of isolation. She followed the river all the way to the Eastern Sea, where the sky ahead loomed dark and turbulent and was filled with countless storms and lightning, drifting like drops of ink spreading in water. This Eastern Sea phenomenon, the scale of it is overwhelming. Li Qinghong reflected slowly. When Dunmu Qi died, there were no major signs. Even when Kai Wei failed his breakthrough, it did not stir much. Could it be due to interference from the underworld, or just a difference in power? As she contemplated these thoughts, speeding across the sea's surface, the world around her plunged into darkness. The sea stretched out endlessly, black as ink, with storms churning above her. Endless, shadowed waters mirrored the ominous clouds, casting her into a vast, boundless night. Descending from the inlet, she was accompanied by a few Qi cultivators who kept a respectful distance from her. Li Qinghong observed the ominous scenery when the cultivators suddenly cried out, "Look, look up." Li Qinghong raised her gaze. Her perception techniques had not yet developed, so she could only make out a faint glimmer amidst the darkness, hovering over the coast of Jiangnan to the west. Within that distant glow, she could vaguely discern a humanoid silhouette, though nothing distinct. This, at the very least, is a Taoist master. She paused, immediately sensing that a powerful cultivator was present. She dared not look too long, but a wave of dizziness washed over her, bringing a rush of visions from far away, spanning 1,000 li. She saw families rising to prominence amid festive music, dynasties falling, battles raging, then a man in armor donning a golden robe, citizens displaced in the turmoil, the sun collapsing, stars fading. A cliff face struck by waves eroded into countless caves, with icy seawater trickling steadily down until the scene jarred her awake. That figure seemed to hold a sword, standing calmly before the advancing black clouds of the eastern sea. As the dark storm loomed closer, the figure finally raised his immortal sword. Clang! A bright white light shot up from the sword, a brilliant beam piercing through the darkness. The sky briefly plunged into blackness, then lit up with streaks of blue and white, comet stars. Countless comet-like streaks, tails blazing, shot across the darkened sky. The heavens first dimmed to their limit before exploding in starlight, as if countless glaring eyes had opened in the sky. Boom! The thick black clouds split abruptly, scattering to either side. The sea roared, slowly receding as the force of the sword's path drove the waters apart, revealing jagged mountain ridges below and numerous unconscious monsters. The impact shook the cultivators, leaving them swaying and delirious while crying out with closed eyes, tears streaming as they moaned in awe. A few, their cultivation level unstable, dropped like birds with broken wings. Even Li Qingheng had to steady herself, touching down on the water. She watched as the dark clouds along the coast were swept away as if by a fierce wind, clearing completely. The distant storms and black clouds came to a halt, hesitating hundreds of li from the coast, no longer advancing. Chapter 563, Severing the Phenomena II, That Taoist Master. Severed the natural phenomenon, Li Qingheng mused quietly to herself, in awe. The cultivators were visibly shaken, staring dumbly at the turbulent skies above them. Cold raindrops began to fall, and as Li Qingheng bowed her head and closed her eyes, a warm tear traced down her cheek. She heard an elder cultivator beside her murmur, "The eclipse and falling stars. It is the true monarch of the Yue cultivating sect at work." The Qi cultivators could not even make out the true monarch's form and thus escaped the more intense side effects. But Li Qingheng, at her foundation establishment realm, had caught a fleeting glimpse and suffered a cascade of haunting visions. Taking a deep breath, she steadied herself, feeling the unsettling tremor in her heart. She drifted away from the crowd, diving deep beneath the water's surface to distance herself. It took her a moment to recover fully before a thought surfaced, prompting her to mutter, what weapon was that true monarch wielding? Was it a staff, a sword? She mulled it over for a moment, glancing all around her. Her gaze blurred slightly, and she murmured, "How did I end up at the ocean floor?" Emerging from the water, Li Qingheng glanced toward the lingering, unmoving thunderclouds. She turned back to look upon the now serene Jiangnan, muttering in bewilderment, "How strange. Why are those clouds not moving?" After flying a few more li, a sudden, chilly sensation settled over her in the Shenyang Mansion region. She halted imperceptibly, suppressing her unease, and quickly dove back beneath the waves. Darkness settled over several prefectures in the Yue state, and on Spleetered Island in the eastern sea, the night grew even denser. Under the water, the entire seabed was cloaked in an inky blackness, while turbulent storm clouds surged above, swallowing up the once bright sky and darkening the waters until they resembled thick black ink. Thunderstorms raged across the ocean's surface, stirring waves into a frenzy as violet-black lightning cascaded down with the rumbling force of landslides and crashing seas. Li Xuanfeng had spent several months on the island, gradually acclimating to its atmosphere. Standing in the water with his hands behind his back, he observed the pitch-dark depths alongside Ning Heiyuan, who stood just behind him. Glancing at the darkened waters, Ning Heiyuan spoke softly, "Brother-in-law, these storms are rare, let alone such an immense thunderstorm. The sea is as black as ink, stretching on for thousands of li. It is a sign something has happened." Li Xuanfeng turned slightly toward him, and Ning Heiyuan, being well informed, explained in a low tone, "Word from within the sect says a sea creature tried to break through to the Golden Core realm in the Eastern Sea but failed, dying in the process." Ning Heiyuan paused, adding, "It was from the converging water lineage, which has little to do with us, but there is likely unrest in the Serpent Dragon Palace. With this phenomenon already underway, it is probably a settled matter by now." Li Xuanfeng nodded, and Ning Heiyuan continued, "I have picked up a few things worth sharing with you, brother-in-law." Li Xuanfeng gestured for him to proceed, and Ning Heiyuan went on, "The Golden Tang Gate's Golden Sack Island has been quiet for years, but it is said they recently established a temple there, because a woman gave birth to a child with awakened spiritual roots." Hearing this, Li Xuanfeng cast a sidelong glance at the distant thunderstorm, muttering, "That wrathful Dao lineage master monk is not dead. He has not returned to the north. He dares to reincarnate here on Golden Sack Island." Ning Heiyuan nodded, speaking quietly, "I looked into it thoroughly. It is not that he could not return, rather. The wrathful Dao has been heavily weakened in recent years, its territories split up by the other 6 Dao. Many temples were destroyed, and those monks understand one another best. It is not only in the Eastern Sea. Several wrathful Dao Master monks' tactics have been dismantled in the north, so they have sent agents to the southern seas and Jiangnan as backup. I see, Li Xuanfeng replied with a nod. Ning Heiyuan then added a word of caution. That island has a foundation establishment realm formation and several guest cultivators guarding it. Though Golden Tang Gate may be waning, it still has some reserves, and it is likely safer there than elsewhere. Li Xuanfeng was Ning Heiyuan's brother-in-law, and his only family member allowed to stand by a Taoist master's side. Ning Heiyuan, not wanting any harm to come to him, subtly voiced his concerns. Li Xuanfeng responded softly, the Taoist master dislikes the Sidhu family. He recalled hearing rumors of tension between Yuansu and the Sidhu family. At first, Li Xuanfeng had not fully understood the significance of these rumors, but he now recalled how Yuansu, before his departure, had specifically instructed him, all but the dragon kin are fair game. With this instruction in mind, Li Xuanfeng now saw things clearly. One of Yuansu's motives in deploying him had been to target Golden Tang Gate, serving both as a mission and a means to settle an old grudge. Upon hearing this, Ning Heiyuan nodded slightly and added, years ago, a friend of the Taoist master gifted him a three-eyed Mount Tio beast, a prized creature that Sidhu Tang killed for its third eye. Although they compensated him with spirit treasures, resentment remained. After a quick moment of reflection, Ning Heiyuan continued, as for the Taoist masters within the sect, only Taoist Master Yunwu holds favorable ties with the Sidhu family. The others do not look upon them kindly. Li Xuanfeng watched the storm brewing far off in the sea depths and asked in a low voice, any way to draw them out. Ning Heiyuan paused briefly before answering, Sidhu Mo is cautious and after suffering a previous setback, likely will not step out easily. Golden Sack Island is fortified like an iron barrel, so direct confrontation is not advisable. But, brother-in-law, perhaps wait for an opportunity, a time when Golden Tang Gate escorts a merchant ship. That would be the perfect moment to ambush the monk. Master monks often place too much trust in their divination skills, making them easier to catch off guard. Regardless of Golden Sack Island's defenses, it was still a Golden Tang Gate market and thus heavily fortified. Ning Heiyuan continued, as for drawing him out, I do have one method. He took out a clear jade box from his sleeve, within which rested an intricately carved jade figurine three-headed and six-armed, each hand gripping a short staff or axe-like weapon. I acquired this especially for you, brother-in-law. It is a wrathful treasure artifact from the Buddhist cultivator, equivalent to our Foundation Establishment Realm Dharma artifacts, a rare find. Buddhist cultivation, after all, only began to rise in more recent ages. Although successive revered ones had refined and completed its lineage over time, their techniques in smithing and alchemy remained comparatively undeveloped, making this treasure exceptionally rare among Buddhist cultivators. Passing the jade box to Li Xuanfeng, Ning Heiyuan explained, this treasure can be sensed by any cultivator from the wrathful Dao lineage within 100 li. In the past, if a wrathful Maha had been nearby, they could have sensed it from thousands of li away, ordering its immediate retrieval. No one dared to reveal it then, but now, it can serve as bait. Confident in his position as a direct disciple of the immortal sect, Ning Heiyuan spoke with assurance, certain that taking down a master monk from a fading Dao lineage would be straightforward. After so long on the island, I am sure that Master Monk left behind many reincarnation channels. Even weakened, their reckless ways guarantee they will seize any chance to act. Whether you can completely eliminate him, though, depends on yourself. Well done, Li Xuanfeng remarked with rare praise as he took the jade box, murmuring, you have gone to great trouble for this. Ning Heiyuan smiled, waving it off, and replied quietly, what are you saying, brother-in-law? We are family. The years had worn down Ning Heiyuan's sharp edges and pride. Building his bond with Li Xuanfeng was more than seeking favor with a Taoist master. It was to solidify this familial tie and prepare an additional path for his future. Li Xuanfeng then glanced down at the figurine in the clear jade box, his expression hardening as he thought to himself, I still owe a blood debt to my second uncle. I will start by exacting a little interest from this bald-headed monk. Chapter 564, Arriving at the Golden Sack Island. Li Xuanfeng was alone, armored and cloaked, standing on a golden flying shuttle as he sped through the surging dark waves. Taking advantage of the brewing sea storm, he found an excuse to silently leave the market at Spleetard Island. Riding the wind through thunder and rain, he headed eastward, traveling thousands of li along the water veins until he arrived at the scarlet pristine sea. Though the eastern sea's weather was famously unpredictable, with sudden shifts from clear to stormy skies. Such a fierce thunderstorm was rare. The night was pitch black, cloaked under heavy, boundless clouds. The scarlet pristine sea had turned a dark green, nearly black, seeming to be merging seamlessly with the horizon's darkness. Li Xuanfeng suppressed the golden light of his shuttle, advancing noiselessly through the wind. Torrential rain struck his black-gold spirit armor, shattering into mist upon contact with his protective aura which enveloped him like a shield. In the distance, Golden Sack Island soon appeared on the horizon. Li Xuanfeng quietly pulled back, stopping a few li away. Reaching into his storage pouch, he retrieved a jade box. Although he was confident the monk would take the bait, Li Xuanfeng was not one to act recklessly. Estimating a distance of about 100 li from Golden Sack Island, he took the figurine from the jade box, casually brushing it along the island's perimeter before placing it back in the box. He then landed on a nearby island to observe Golden Sack Island's response. Golden Sack Island. Sidumo had suffered greatly from an ambush orchestrated by the Li family in alliance with Kong Tingyun, leaving him at a severe disadvantage. Yet, after spending several years in secluded cultivation on the island, he emerged to find that the situation was not as dire as he had initially feared. First, his caution had paid off. By treating Kong Tingyun as a formidable opponent, he had managed to preserve his life, sustaining only minor injuries. Returning to the island that day, he had been filled with relief. Second, to his surprise, Mutuo had ultimately fallen into his hands. He had initially thought that Mutuo's death would mean the loss of a major ally. Yet, within only half a year on the island, one of the women Mutuo had favored bore a child, which Situmo quickly noticed upon coming out of seclusion. He soon ordered the child to be brought to him. Sure enough, this half-year-old child, who was capable of walking already, looked up at him with a wrinkled, unsightly face. It was unmistakably Mutuo himself. Curious, Sidumo asked, "Why have you not returned to the north?" Even with this reincarnated body, starting from scratch would take you at least decades to regain the title of Master Monk, would it not? Mutuo rolled his eyes, clearly irritated. The north. Is there anywhere safer than your Golden Sack Island? After pressing him further, Sidumo learned that the wrathful Dao lineage in the north had descended into chaos. Mutuo's previous contingency plan statues, heirs, and alternative bodies were now all potential targets, with countless monks lying in wait, eager to capture him upon his reincarnation. Thus, Mutuo had returned to Golden Sack Island, and Sidumo finally understood why Mutuo had been spending his days and nights with women when he first arrived. He had been leaving behind a last resort. After all, reaching the level of a master monk. It comes with some life-preserving skills, Sidumo scoffed to himself inwardly. With Mutuo in his control, Sidumo felt a weight lifted from his shoulders, even allowing himself a small grin. Mutuo, that fool, has truly fallen into my hands. Now, instead of a battle of wits, he will be forced to serve me, my pawn, for the next few decades. He thought to himself in satisfaction. Mutuo might not excel in combat, but his survival and divination skills were outstanding. With this weakened version of Mutuo at his disposal, Sidumo could avoid most risks. He built a small temple for Mutuo, feeding him and nurturing him for his divination skills. Just 2 years later, having mostly recovered from his injuries, Sidumo received some more good news. Kong Tingyun has finally been transferred. This development allowed Sidumo to relax significantly. Always cautious, he still refused to leave the island, wary that Kong Tingyun might try another ploy. It was not until he had fully healed would he even consider stepping outside. No matter how much Mutuo or the guest cultivators advised him otherwise, even when word came from his sect that Kong Tingyun had been sighted at another base, he remained steadfast, refusing to leave the island. Sidumo was no fool. The enmity between his family and the Li family was now openly acknowledged. Even without Kong Tingyun, the Li family could easily hire a few Foundation Establishment realm experts. With their combined forces, he could be ambushed and gravely injured again, and that would spell disaster. Sidumo resented the Golden Tang Gate, despising this world where such sects exploited and discarded families like the Jai family for blood qi. To sever ties completely, he even refused to use blood qi for healing or cultivation, treating his injuries with the utmost caution. Having come out of seclusion, he was lost in thought when, unexpectedly, Mutuo hurriedly approached him, calling out to him with great urgency in his voice. Sidumo, over the years, Mutuo had used blood qi to at least restore his original appearance. Although Sidumo found him repulsive, he had no choice but to rein in his irritation and asked in a low voice, "What is it now? If you need blood qi, go buy it from the market. Do not even think about bothering the people on my island." However, Mutuo exclaimed excitedly, it is a treasured artifact. As the red-faced monk hurriedly explained the situation, Sidumo listened patiently before frowning and replying, "What so-called treasured artifact? This must be one of Kong Tingyun's tricks. She must be trying to lure us out." Mutuo opened his mouth to curse him as a coward, but suddenly remembered that his cautiousness had saved his life last time, so he grudgingly replied, "What does it matter? Kong Tingyun went back to the Yue state long ago. Besides, it is only 100 li away. What kind of ambush would that be? If a fight breaks out, all I need to do is shoot a signal into the sky, and the island will see it instantly. Who sets up an ambush like that?" Sidumo frowned, looking at the monk with some frustration. "And what can this artifact do?" With no one else around, Mutuo spoke frankly, "It is incredibly useful. Our wrathful Dao lineage has some methods that can exploit particular artifacts to remotely control others, even proclaiming their sins. It is remarkably effective." Mutuo continued, "This technique can enact the Tao of transformation. According to records, some people who crave deer meat and must eat it daily, once this artifact shines on them, their sins manifest, and it transforms them into a deer, making them experience the punishment. A true taste of their own medicine, and if they are powerful enough to resist the transformation, well, do they not have disciples, family? Let them feel the weight of retribution." Mutuo clarified, "This transformation is not an illusion. If one is struck by the spell, they genuinely turn into a deer, as if they were born that way." Sidumo shuddered, staring deeply at him, feeling a sudden chill in his heart. Mutuo seemed entirely certain, and Sidumo could not find any fault in his words. After a moment of silence, he suddenly asked, "What difference is there between eating a person and eating a deer?" "All beings are equal, there is no difference," replied Mutuo, flashing a set of white teeth, as though the blood qi he had absorbed a few days prior was nothing more than a few bites of venison. Noticing Sidumo's gaze, he shook his head and added, "So eating deer is like eating people. It is a boundless sin. No one should do it." Sidumo could no longer contain himself and interrupted with a curse, "You damned hypocrite, did you not consume blood qi just days ago?" Mutuo shook his head. Once I have reached illumination, these people and deer who aided in my cultivation will ascend to paradise as well. It is a great blessing." Sidumo restrained his temper, casting him a sidelong glance before saying in a low voice, "Stop spouting nonsense. I will not listen to this drivel. I will send someone to that location first to check things out on your behalf. Do not go rushing into things recklessly." Chapter 565, Yu had lain in ambush near Golden Sack Island for several years, but his senior brother, Mutuo, still had not emerged from the island. Both he and Mutuo had originally been monks at Qinling Temple in Yaoxiang Prefecture. After the Maha's fall, the temple collapsed, and Mutuo and Yu fled Zhao Prefecture, each going in a different direction. Qinling Temple's lineage had already been in decline, without even a protector like the Merciful One, and after the fall of the Wrathful One, the lineage had weakened more considerably. Many of their methods for divination and combat were now ineffective, forcing them to hide in various places. Mutuo, though not skilled in combat, had managed to retain the temple's Dao lineage, which allowed him to calculate others' movements, enabling him to live in relative comfort. Yu himself, however, despite being stronger, lacked comparable divination skills, which made his years rather difficult in comparison. He had fled Zhao Prefecture to the Eastern Sea, passing through the Scarlet Pristine Sea when he sensed that something was wrong. Setting up a high altar for divination, he discovered that his senior brother's physical body had been shattered, and he was so wounded that he did not even dare reincarnate back in Zhao. His heart stirred at this revelation. In normal times, you can hide your aura, preserve the lineage, and evade my searches. But now that your vile qi is depleted, the opportunity has finally come for this old monk. Over the years, Yu had encountered a few fortuitous events. Combining these new skills with his knowledge of the Tao, he managed to divine Mutuo's location after vomiting 3 mouthfuls of blood, tending to his wounds before setting up his ambush. The inheritance of Buddhist cultivators was tied to destiny, and Qinling Temple's Tao lineage was intricately linked to Mutuo's fate. As Mutuo's junior brother, if he could kill Mutuo and absorb his essence, the lineage would naturally fall into his hands. However, despite lying in wait for several years, Mutuo had yet to appear. Instead, Yu sensed the presence of a treasured artifact. The Buddhist cultivators of Zhao Prefecture were not known for much, but they were unmatched in survival techniques. Bold as ever, Yu decided to investigate first, rushing off on the wind. Meanwhile, Li Xuanfeng was standing still, cultivating on the sea, awaiting news from Golden Sack Island to the south when he saw a flash of golden light racing in from the north. The figure hovered nearby, circling the area. Using a perception technique, he took a closer look. Sure enough, it was a large monk with a long face and deep-set eyes, holding a pair of short staves. His entire body was flushed red, and his eyes were wide with anger. Clearly, he was a member of the wrathful Dao lineage. This monk's aura was intense, with a golden flame blazing all around him. Li Xuanfeng observed him from a distance, quietly reaching for the Golden Age longbow strapped to his back and watching the newcomer intently. Is this Mutuo? Li Xuanfeng watched coldly, sensing that something was off. According to Ning family's intelligence, Mutuo should have been severely injured and not yet recovered, and besides, he was not known for wielding dual staves. Seems this is an ally of Mutuo's, another lackey of the wrathful Dao. Although he had not managed to lure Mutuo out, he had instead caught the attention of a wrathful Dao monk. Li Xuanfeng kept his gaze fixed on him, waiting patiently with his bow. The monk, wearing half a robe and carrying 2 long staves on his back, looked like a warrior monk. He patrolled the sea area where the artifact's aura had been sensed, circling around the same spot. Li Xuanfeng kept his distance, relying on his perception technique to watch from afar, undetected. Li Xuanfeng's black gold spirit armor, a Foundation Establishment realm armor known as Black Tiger Eyes, naturally concealed his aura, making it unlikely that the monk would even be able to detect him if he approached. Still aware of the Buddhist cultivator's strange abilities, he kept his distance just in case. Yu frowned as he scanned the area. Suddenly he perked up, his keen eyes spotting someone flying in from the south, lurking suspiciously and circling the area. However, this newcomer's cultivation level was merely at the late Qi cultivation realm. Seeing an easy target, Yu sped towards him and shouted, "Who goes there?" The Golden Sack Island cultivator jumped in fright, sneaking a glance at Yu and confirming he was indeed a Buddhist monk. He thought to himself, so this must be the one with the treasured Buddhist artifact that the Lord spoke of. I will have a few words with him and let the Lord handle it. He took a step back, intending to deflect Yu's attention and then return to the island. Confident in his connections, he replied softly, "Greetings, Senior. I am from Golden Sack Island." However, before he could even finish his sentence, Yu's face contorted into a cruel smile. Reaching out, he sent a force surging through the cultivator's body, causing his face to flush and his forehead to bead with sweat as he scrambled to reach for the talisman hidden in his sleeve. Yu's combat skills were exceptional, even among monks. Master monks were inherently stronger than Foundation Establishment realm cultivators, and even with his Dao lineage weakened, he was far too much for this cultivator. The cultivator felt a rush of blood to his head as the monk moved in closer to him, grabbing him by the collar. The cultivator opened his mouth to plead, but a mouthful of blood spurted out instead. His protective barrier flashed brightly, but it was merely a Qi cultivation realm shield and disintegrated instantly under the master monk's strike. My lord, my lord." Yu ignored his cries, dislocating the cultivator's limbs and pulling out his white bones almost effortlessly. Pressing a hand on his skull, Yu, though unskilled in soul-searching techniques, had learned a thing or two. After scanning through the cultivator's recent 3-day memories, he laughed loudly and said, "Situmo is truly a coward. If not for that, my senior brother would have fallen into my hands long ago." Not only did he spare the cultivator, but he used his mana to keep him alive. Carrying the limp body, he found a banyan tree on the island and secured the cultivator's head to it, preserving his life force. Then, taking a handful of blood from the corpse nearby, he smeared it across his face, his features twisting and shifting until they morphed into the appearance of the Golden Sack Island cultivator. Yu chuckled sinisterly before rising on the wind, flying south with a carefree. After a good 10 breaths, Li Xuanfeng finally landed by the edge of the island. He took slow, measured steps forward and raised his gaze to look at the large banyan tree. The head affixed to the tree bore a strange expression, somewhere between a smirk and a sneer, a mingle between anger and excitement. It seemed that this man was still alive, caught in some delusion of escape or dreams of revenge. Li Xuanfeng studied him intently, his eyes narrowing. The sand and pebbles at his feet clinked and rattled, jumping and scraping against each other, which produced a sharp, grating sound. His gaze grew fierce, as if he could devour a person at any moment. This man's fate reminded Li Xuanfeng of his younger brother, Li Xuanling, who had been beaten and killed and his body devoured at Zhenhui Temple. Back then, only Li Tongya had managed to bring back the remains, and even that was just a lone head. Li Xuanfeng had been stationed in the southern border and had not witnessed it himself. Now, staring at this head, a boiling rage surged within him, his eyes nearly splitting in fury. Unlike Li Xuanxuan, who had broken down in sorrow and hatred, allowing inner demons to take root, Li Xuanfeng's expression grew colder the deeper his hatred grew. In his mind, he calmly analyzed the upcoming situation, his bowstring vibrating slightly and producing a series of sharp, eagle-like whistles in the air. He then turned, striding step by step along the coastline until he reached the shore. He lifted on the wind, headed straight toward Golden Sack Island. Chapter 566, Yu Ai. Disguised as the Golden Sack Island cultivator named Sidu Yu flew swiftly on the wind. Halfway there, he encountered someone, a man in a golden robe, at the Foundation Establishment realm, clearly a guest cultivator from Golden Sack Island. Though Yu had used specialized spells and blood chi to create a perfect disguise, it was not flawless before a Foundation Establishment realm cultivator, especially if that cultivator specialized in perception techniques. Without any delay, Yu hurriedly used the title from Sidu recent memory, saying urgently, "Master Zong, do not delay. Report back to the island at once." Yu continued, "A monk and a cultivator are fighting up ahead, struggling over something that is shining like gold. They have taken the fight to the ocean floor, and it is a matter of life and death. Please, honored guest, alert the Lord immediately." This Master Zong had dispatched 5 or 6 scouts earlier, with the person Yu was impersonating being the first to return. Hearing this, he did not dare linger. He quickly replied, "Understood. Point me in the direction. I will go ahead and keep watch while you return to report." Yu had planned for every reaction, ready to adapt as needed. Casually, he pointed the guest cultivator in a direction, then continued on his journey to the island. Landing at the edge of Golden Sack Island, he spotted a rough-looking monk flying toward him. "Senior brother." Yu was momentarily startled. His disguise might pass before a Foundation Establishment realm cultivator, but fooling Mutuo, a fellow master monk, would be far more challenging. However, Mutuo only cast him an impatient glance and snapped, "What is going on?" Only then did Yu recall that Mutuo's physical body had been shattered, rendering him unable to recognize people accurately. Holding back a grin, he swiftly conveyed the message, prompting Mutuo to grow tense. The monk immediately flew off to find Sidu Mo, while Yu waited cautiously outside the formation. Inside the hall, Mutuo, who was now dripping in sweat, feeling both furious and alarmed, exclaimed urgently, "Sidu, get me 3 or 4 guest cultivators at once." Sidu Mo, having overheard the conversation between the two earlier, merely frowned in suspicion. "Could it really be true? It sounds too good to be true. I suggest we send someone to check it out first." "No." Mutuo, still visibly shaken, sighed. "Thank the heavens you had the foresight to act carefully. The person just now was no longer Sidu He was actually my junior brother. He must think my physical body is too damaged to see through his disguise, but he does not know that the master taught me the secret technique of blood mask. I recognized him the moment I saw him." "Your junior brother," Sidu Mo repeated. Ever quick-witted, he grasped the situation instantly. Speaking in a low voice, he asked, "What do you intend to do?" Mutuo said urgently, "Stop wasting time squabbling. If we delay too long, that sly bastard will grow suspicious. Just bring a few guest cultivators with me and I will lure him into the formation." "Rubbish." Sidu Mo cut him off sharply. "Do you think he will walk into the formation willingly? You are better off taking a few guest cultivators with you and setting an ambush around him." Mutuo paused, momentarily stunned, realizing that Sidu Mo's reasoning made perfect sense. If this were truly a trap and he were anxious to escape, he would not needlessly call others into the formation. Doing so would only arouse Yu's suspicion and might cause him to abandon the plan. Without stopping to praise Sidu Mo, he hurriedly called 4 guest cultivators to join him and sped out on the wind. As Sidu Mo watched the group leave, he felt a slight pang of realization, thinking to himself, so it was the wrathful Dao lineage's ambush after all. I knew this was too good to be true. He took a couple of steps forward, just reaching the edge of the formation, and calculated, with Mutuo and the 4 guest cultivators, there is no way this Yu can escape. I should still exercise caution and refrain from leaving the formation recklessly. Taking a step back, he stood within the gleaming formation, watching the outside in silence. Mutuo, now outside the formation, was flanked closely by the 4 guest cultivators who guarded him tightly. The disguised Yu, posing as Sidu grinned and said excitedly, "My lord, come with me." Mutuo nodded, moving forward on the wind toward the north, preparing to strike. The 4 men at his side subtly edged closer to Yu. The 4 guest cultivators, all at the Foundation Establishment realm, displayed no change in their expressions, but their actions were telling. After flying only 10 li, Yu finally sensed that something was amiss, his mind suddenly alert. Noticing this, Mutuo, who had been watching carefully, shouted out a single command. Attack! All 4 guest cultivators sprang into action instantly. Golden, radiant artifacts flew from their hands, weaving a blazing web in the sky as they launched their assault on Yu. These artifacts were all of the Golden Tang Gate, but their techniques varied wildly, chaotic, and unrefined. Clearly, these guest cultivators were originally Eastern Sea cultivators who later joined Golden Sack Island. Their power, however, was nothing extraordinary. You damned dogs. Yu reacted quickly, forming a hand seal that emitted light. Golden flames ignited around his limbs, and a 3-headed, 6-armed figure materialized behind him, each hand wielding a short staff or hatchet. Seeing this, Mutuo burst into laughter and sneered. With me here, do you still think you can escape using some escape spell? You really spared no effort, even bringing a treasured artifact to bait me. Now, it seems you have lost both your plan and your prize. Though his aura was weak, Mutuo effortlessly cast a hand seal that shot a beam of light forward. Without further motion, the light blurred the shadowy figure behind Yu. With a cold smirk, Mutuo declared pridefully, I am the true head of Qinling Temple. With his inheritance intact, Mutuo had little difficulty breaking Yu's spell. He called the 4 Golden Sack Island cultivators to close in on Yu while he kept his distance, merely interfering with Yu's spells from afar. So senior brother held back a trick or two when he passed down the teachings. Surrounded by his opponents, Yu remained calm, cursing bitterly under his breath and responding coldly, Do not underestimate me, senior brother. Golden light flowed from his hands as he drew 2 long staves, each intricately etched with golden patterns. He crossed them together with a loud clang, deflecting the 4 incoming attacks. With a fierce stance, he swung the staves at his attackers, ignoring the weapons piercing his body. His eyes glowed with golden light, heating the air around him in visible waves. The physical bodies of Buddhist cultivators resembled clay. When the weapons pierced through his body, no blood emerged. Instead, the wounds sealed with a sticky resilience after each strike. Nonetheless, Yu's ferocity made the guest cultivators hesitate, not wanting to sustain injuries that could disrupt their cultivation. For now, they moved cautiously, making sure they did not get too close. Of course, none of them expected to capture the monk immediately. Without employing their full immortal foundation abilities, they tested each other's strengths. The flashes of light clashed constantly, creating violent explosions in the sky. Mutuo's eyes gleamed with greed as he cast a glance at his junior brother, Yu, and muttered, If I devour your body, I can cut down decades of recovery time. Yu sneered, assessing the battlefield. He had several backup plans and felt certain he would not die here. At most, he would have to surrender this master monk's body to Mutuo. For now, his only thought was to escape with minimal losses. You may escape, but can that artifact on you escape as well? Mutuo, sensing Yu's intentions, smirked to himself. He coughed, spitting out blood, then wiped the corner of his mouth. Examining the dark red blood in his palm, he suddenly froze. What is going on? A chill spread across his face, and blood began to drip steadily. Turning his head slightly, he felt as if his left eye were about to burst, his remaining vision filled with overwhelming golden light. This golden light seemed to stretch across the sky, vast and penetrating, though barely visible if he tried to look directly at it. A searing pain pricked his face, filling him with dread. This damned traitor has backup. Chapter 567, A Kill by Arrow. Li Xuanfeng waited a while, watching as the 2 monks began to turn on each other. Ever since Yu had disguised himself as a member of the Sidu family, Li Xuanfeng had anticipated that a good show was about to unfold. Standing on his golden shuttle, he hovered quietly, observing from above. As he saw the 2 monks fly north and clash in the sky, Li Xuanfeng raised his left hand and pulled the longbow from his back. Gripping the bow with one hand and drawing the string with the other, he cast a cold glance and, without hesitation, selected Mutuo as his target. This one is easier to kill and more likely to panic and retreat back into the formation. I will take him out first. He exhaled deeply, his fierce eyes widening, and his black-gold armor emitted a radiant glow. A golden light profound arrow, crafted from refined gold, jumped out from the quiver at his waist and obediently set itself onto the bowstring. The Golden Age longbow he held had been reforged in Yi Mountain City, now much improved from its former self. It measured 8 kai and 6 kun in length, with limbs 3 kai and 5 kun long, making it even longer than it had been in the past. The bow gleamed with a subdued golden light, the entire surface shimmering as though alive. If stood upright on the ground, it would tower over an average person from Zhao Prefecture by at least a head. Held horizontally, it resembled a mighty siege crossbow. The golden arrow, also a Dharma artifact, measured about 4 kai in length. It bore no complex patterns. Its sleek, sharp lines were honed to perfection by a master craftsman in the southern border, and it was as heavy as an iron ox. Creak, creak, creak. Li Xuanfeng slowly drew the bowstring, tilting the golden bow from horizontal to a slight angle, its impressive 8 kai span looking like the outstretched wings of a great eagle from a distance. Whoosh. As the golden light intensified even more, Li Xuanfeng narrowed his gaze, his eyes spanning hundreds of li as he fixed on Mutuo's hideous face. Take this. Li Xuanfeng suddenly released his hold, and the golden arrow vanished into thin. Without pausing to observe the outcome, he reached for a second golden arrow, placing it onto the string and aiming once more. Mutuo had just wiped the blood from his face when a sudden, overwhelming terror gripped his body. Blood began to well up on his face like dewdrops, one after another, spilling uncontrollably. He let out a desperate scream, "Save." He barely managed to utter a single word before the 4 guest cultivators around him noticed his strange state and moved back, planning to join forces to protect him, only to hear a faint hum. Hum. They looked closer, and Mutuo's once pale head was now gone. Where his neck had been was now a smooth, mirror-like surface. Fine tendrils of flesh extended from the edge of the severed neck, waving in the air as though trying to regrow the head. Yet, as soon as they extended beyond the cut, they all snapped off cleanly. A letter 2115, letter 1ed5, letter 162, epsilon s diuresis, the vitality of Zhao Buddhist cultivators, was nearly unmatched, rivaled only by devil cultivators. Mutuo's hands flailed wildly in the air in a panic he had never felt before, not even when he had been crushed to pieces beneath Kong Tingyun's golden mountain. He staggered 2 steps in the air, his hands reaching for his neck, but as soon as his fingers touched the severed edge, they, too, snapped off with a wet, slicing sound. Hum. A second hum rang out, and Mutuo vanished, leaving only a few wisps of blood mist in the air. Almost simultaneously, statues in several temples on Golden Sack Island exploded, scattering into clouds of stone dust. Several infants also burst into blood mist without warning, leaving the ground soaked in blood. The guest cultivators in the air and you all froze, watching in shock as Mutuo was obliterated, body and soul, right before their eyes. In an instant, both sides had forgotten about fighting or fleeing. You felt an intangible connection gradually creeping over him. His senior brother, Mutuo, had been annihilated before him, and Kinling Temple's inheritance naturally transferred over to him. The prize he had long sought after landed in his hands effortlessly, but his face showed no joy. Instead, he murmured in a daze, What was that? It was an arrow. An arrow, he coughed, spitting out flecks of blood, feeling his face sting as if cut by a blade. Tiny beads of blood seeped from his left cheek. With no time to cry out, he hastily formed a hand seal, unleashing 100 beams of golden light around him. Yu was already stronger than Mutuo, and with the temple's inheritance now transferred to him, his power surged even more. However, he was thoroughly terrified, and the 100 beams of golden light encircled his body as he fled desperately, riding the wind through the sky. The guest cultivators from Golden Sack Island were both frightened and bewildered. The man they had been ordered to protect had been obliterated before their eyes, leaving them with feelings too complex to describe. Glancing at the blood mist in the air and the frenzied Yu fleeing eastward, one of them remarked, "This monk has numerous life-preserving techniques. Perhaps he has already resurrected on the island." Another cultivator, his face pale with fear, shook his head. "Should we give chase?" They exchanged a glance, each seeing the terror in each other's eyes, then silently set off in pursuit to the north, moving so slowly they looked more like they were taking in the scenery than giving chase. Yu had barely fled 2 lei when a chilling sensation swept over his body. A sharp hum filled his ears, and he instinctively darted to the side, his arm erupting in searing pain. Glancing down, he saw a bloody hole in his palm. For a Buddhist cultivator, this kind of wound was hardly serious. Buddhist cultivators did not depend heavily on their physical bodies. Their flesh could be easily reshaped and mended at will. Usually, a mere brush of the hand would be enough to close such a wound. But now blood dripped unceasingly from the injury, and Yu felt an intense, numbing pain with no sign of healing. His pupils widened, and he felt a surge of panic. Li Xuanfeng's attack had immense power. Yu had encountered formidable enemies before. Those from elite immortal sects often wielded techniques of this caliber, but what truly terrified Yu was another question that danced in his mind. Where is he? The attack was blindingly fast, seeming to pierce through the great void itself, or perhaps emanate from an endless, unseen distance. Yu had no idea where his opponent was positioned. Was he moving farther away with each desperate attempt to escape, or was he getting closer? The unknown was more frightening than raw power. Unable to see even the shadow of his enemy, he was left in complete ignorance of the enemy's energy drain, attack intervals, or range. An icy dread crept up his spine, and he felt droplets of blood beginning to seep from his chest. He is toying with me, damn it. A flash of realization hit Yu. He cast a new spell, forming a hand seal. Behind him appeared the figure of a three-headed, six-armed figure, and he shouted, "Supreme Dharma Empowerment, Vajra Golden Body." His skin instantly began to glow, shifting from red to a bright, lustrous gold, as if forged from bronze with unmatched solidity. Tiny runes danced across his skin, moving in a rhythmic, pulsing flow. In the next moment, however, he spat out a mouthful of pale, golden blood. The golden mist dispersed in the air, sparkling under the sunlight in a surreal display. A hole the width of a forearm had been punched clean through Yu's chest, exposing the greenish-red seawater behind him. Despite his empowered form, he finally caught sight of the golden projectile that had struck him. It was a slender, brilliant golden arrow, sharp and translucent, gleaming like the mythical phoenix itself. Forcing himself to suppress his terror, Yu gently touched the wound and finally understood. So that is the true power of this attack. If this had been before Maha's fall, my Dharma body might have held up. What a pity. Chapter 568, Destroyed Body. I knew it. It's an arrow. When did such a powerful archer with a golden bow emerge in the eastern sea to take my life for no reason? Since Yu could clearly see the enemy, the panic in his heart began to subside. In its place, a deep wave of hatred surged. Thanks to his Vajra body, he survived the attack and was able to determine the direction from which the golden phoenix-like profound arrow had come from. This arrow came from the front, so the enemy must be in the east. Damn it, I came all the way here for nothing. Realizing the direction of the attack, Yu immediately returned. He quickly turned and rode the Dharma light, flying toward the west. He performed a hand seal, and his two long staves began to glow with golden light, thickening and stretching outward. The smell of burning incense emanated from them, radiating arcs of light that gradually formed into a circular shield, kindling shield. Yu did not have many defensive spells at his disposal. With one staff behind his back while the other pressed against his chest, he made sure his heart and vital organs were well protected as he rode the wind. Although Yu had never seen this man before, he was betting that such a powerful attack should not be easy to execute. But just as he thought he was safe, a buzzing sound suddenly rang in his ears, followed by a sharp pain shooting through his chest and back. The sound tore through his ears, echoing constantly and almost to no end, causing his ears to bleed. A wave of raw fear surged in his heart. Yu realized this was not just any ordinary sound. It was the result of the enemy's immortal foundation or its supporting spell. His mind raced. It's someone from the immortal sect, but not the Golden Tang Gate. Which one has such a powerful disciple? Could it be the Sword Gate? Then a tremendous shock hit his chest. The long staff in his hand let out a mournful cry before flying out of his grasp, spinning twice in the air. Yu clutched his chest, feeling a new hole the size of a cow's eye in his left chest. A Buddhist cultivator's Dharma artifact was inferior. By the time he recovered his long staff again, he realized that it was now slightly bent. Yu was filled with dread. He attacked from the front again. He's doing this on purpose. The man's archery skills were unmatched, and Yu had never encountered such a terrifying immortal arrow before in his life. It felt as though the archer was toying with him, striking for amusement. No matter which direction he took, the enemy could seemingly hit him at will. Having fought in countless battles before, Yu instinctively dove into the depths of the sea to escape at this critical moment. But just as he did, a cold shiver ran down the back of his neck. Here it comes again. He tried to unleash another spell, but a burst of astral chi pierced through his body with astounding power yet again, creating yet another small hole. It moved through his skin and organs, interrupting Yu's spell twice until he ultimately failed to perform it. Letter 1E5F, letter 1D00, letter Tutaba, Cyrillic Va, a Hachik, letter 1S6 of panic surged in Yu's heart, growing to an unbearable intensity. He performed another hand seal with both hands and then yelled, Paramita technique body sacrifice. In an instant, his pale face and body melted rapidly, transforming into a golden light that enveloped him completely. Yu radiated powerful energy, yet he did not feel any sense of security, only a chilling sense of dread creeping over him. The buzzing in his ears intensified, almost like a million birds chirping in unison, and blood continued flowing from both of his ears. He expended his Dharma body so that he could focus his gaze to the maximum, Finally, he saw 5 golden lights streaking toward him like meteors, their tails glowing brightly. Hummum. Clouds of vapor rose from the seawater, and Yu opened his mouth to let out a roar, finally releasing the primal fear that gripped his heart. The 5 golden lights seemed to vanish, but he realized he was now nothing more than a head attached to a pair of shoulders. The rest of his Dharma body had completely vaporized. At this point, Yu's heart turned as cold as seawater. He raised his arms, and without waiting for the next golden blast to strike, he twisted his own neck with a sharp, deliberate motion. Snap. Yu snapped his own neck. He had intentionally avoided using his Dharma body's power, choosing instead to kill himself in the seawater. The golden light raced in, turning his torso into all but a bloody puddle as his head flew into the air, causing a massive wave to form on the surface of the sea. The waves churned violently before slowly calming down, leaving only thick, dark clouds overhead. A drizzle began to fall on the sea before the 4 gusts of Dharma winds finally arrived. The leader of the guest cultivators gulped nervously, looking at the 3 others standing beside him. None of them dared to meet his gaze. They all lowered their heads and kept their eyes on the ground. While the group was at a loss for what to do, a dark golden light slowly emerged before them. A middle-aged man appeared, riding on a flying shuttle. He reached out, catching Yu's severed head falling from the dark clouds, and with a wave of his sleeve, he collected his Dharma artifact and coldly surveyed the group. This man had a chilling presence, dressed in imposing-looking black gold armor with a longbow slung across his back. One hand rested behind him, while the other held the severed, bald head with terrified eyes frozen in time. Yu's head, still dripping with blood, stained the man's strong arm. He said nothing, merely gazing at the group in silence. That was the thought that crossed the minds of the group simultaneously, but none of them dared to move a finger. A chilling wave of fear washed over them as the middle-aged man approached, step by step. Each of them lowered their heads, staring at the surface of the sea. Finally, the leader of the group spoke. Thank you for your help, Senior. He was sweating profusely, his voice trembling as he spoke. Behind him, a figure swiftly flew over. It was Master Zong, whom Yu had sent away earlier. He circled around, eventually finding the group. Shock and excitement filled his face as he approached and began speaking to the group in a flurry of words. Master Fu, Lord Sidhu must have used some kind of talisman. Just now, during the fight, ice slap. He had only spoken half of his sentence when he sensed the strange atmosphere. He was then slapped across the face unceremoniously, causing him to stagger backward in shock and confusion. The guest cultivator, surnamed Fu, already sweating bullets, quickly pressed his head down and continued speaking. We are but humble cultivators from the Cape. We didn't mean to disturb the immortal sect's emissary. Please forgive us, Senior. Master Zong, noticing the grim expressions of his colleagues that seemed like they wanted to devour him alive, quickly suppressed his anger. Li Xuanfeng's cold gaze swept past him and warned in a dangerously cold voice, Go back and tell Sidumo this. If he dares take even half a step off this island, I will shoot his head off and kick it like a ball. Master Fu nodded quickly, understanding the gravity of the situation. This was a conflict between immortal sects, and he was just a small cultivator from overseas with no power or influence. All he could do was deliver the message. He dared not even wipe the sweat from his brow, nodding frantically as he replied, This humble cultivator understands. Li Xuanfeng's black gold armor glowed slightly before he finally vanished into thin air. The oppressive atmosphere finally lifted, and the crowd's tense expressions began to soften. Master Zong, still reeling from the unexpected slap, was left angry and confused. He looked around at the group, his eyes filled with bewilderment. Master Fu wiped the sweat from his brows and scolded, You should be relieved that you're still alive because you didn't say anything that would have made things worse. Master Zong sort of understood the situation and whispered, Which immortal sect's lord was that? Who knows? You thought that was a talisman attack, but in reality it was just a few arrows released by that man. Looking at his appearance, he may be from the Golden Feather Immortal Sect. Master Fu replied hoarsely, Chapter 569, Destroyed Body, II. Li Xuanfeng, who was now quite some distance away from the group of cultivators, took out his hand that he had been hiding behind his back. His wide palm was now covered by tiny cuts that were slowly opening and closing like a baby's mouth. Blood was flowing freely from his fingers. I was fighting pretty recklessly, he muttered to himself. With a swift motion, Li Xuanfeng put away the severed head. The 5 arrows in his quiver were still vibrating slightly, seemingly thirsty for more action. The golden light from them intertwined with each other beautifully, like twinkling lights following an invisible rhythmic dance. Li Xuanfeng had 5 profound arrows, all crafted from refined gold. After being shot, the arrows would fly back to him obediently. After their flight earlier, the 5 Dharma artifacts seemed particularly excited, constantly buzzing energetically in their quiver. Raising his gaze, Li Xuanfeng glanced around him before raising his longbow again. This time he did not use the golden arrows. Instead, he drew the bow, causing the mana on the bowstring to converge, forming an astral arrow. Swoosh. The arrow whistled through the air, flying 100 li, passing through the dense forest on an island in the sea, and striking the sinister head affixed to a massive banyan tree. Boom. The head on the tree exploded with a loud bang, now reduced to dust along with the swaying banyan tree, leaving only blood stains on the ground. Earlier, you had kept this Sidhu family's member alive, deliberately grafting him onto a banyan tree to avoid raising suspicion with Mutuo. Now, with the situation settled, Li Xuanfeng ended it with a single arrow, sparing the man from his endless struggle on the tree. Li Xuanfeng gently wiped his palm, ensuring that the surface of his hand showed no sign of injury. Thankfully, the wounds were not serious. Just a month or 2 of healing would suffice. Yu, after all, was an old master monk. Despite his declining Dao lineage, he was not to be underestimated, unlike the weak Mutuo who was obliterated with just 2 arrows. Hence, Li Xuanfeng had no choice but to attack mercilessly before this thing had the chance to escape. Too bad. If he had hesitated just a moment longer, he could have been shot right here. Though the master monk had chosen suicide to escape, Li Xuanfeng still had to make things unpleasant for him. Astral Qi was not easy to neutralize and would continue to worsen his injuries. Without external help, Yu would eventually die, slowly and painfully. Before Yu could purge the astral Qi from his body, Li Xuanfeng's golden age would have sensed his presence if he came even within 100 li, and with a single arrow, Li Xuanfeng could have made him flee again. Li Xuanfeng had spent decades on the southern border, disheartened before growing more proud and confident. The news he had heard from the Ning family left him seething in resentment for the longest time. And now, after obliterating and gravely injuring the 2 Buddhist cultivators, the hatred in his heart had finally eased slightly. He murmured, "Just you wait. This is only the interest, not the price." After killing his way through the battle earlier, most of his mana reserve had been drained. As he flew through the dark, swirling clouds, Li Xuanfeng squinted, carefully considering his next steps. Sidhu Mo is cautious. Since he's already revealed his strength, I don't think I can hide things much longer given his family's influence. I might as well use this opportunity to deter him or make him too fearful to leave the island. That way, he won't be able to harass my family's descendants. Sidhu Mo's caution was unexpected, and Li Xuanfeng decided not to make things more difficult for the island's guest cultivators. He was in no condition to continue fighting, so he might as well stay to intimidate Sidhu Mo. Letter 1D411 A circumflex letter FF4E, letter FF4F letter 1D587. Thunder rumbled more frequently overhead, and the sky grew darker with ink-like clouds. Looking up at the misty expanse, the rain showed no sign of stopping. Li Yuanjiao always handled matters with caution, and since he was unable to gather information on where the Li family had settled down in the Eastern Sea, Li Xuanfeng could only return to Spleetered Island. It was dark on the sea, and Li Xuanfeng continued flying in the rain for a long time before he saw Spleetered Island in the distance. Diving into the sea, he was greeted by Ning Heiyuan, who approached him with a smile. "Brother-in-law, how did it go?" "Not bad," Li Xuanfeng replied vaguely with a nod. Ning Heiyuan did not press further, merely laughing in response. "Fellow Taoist Qingheng has arrived at the marketplace and is waiting for you," he informed. "Qingheng is..." Li Xuanfeng responded as he finally smiled, hurrying a few steps forward before flying toward the marketplace. Eastern Sea, Kunyi Strait. The islands in Kunyi Strait were densely packed, scattered across every corner of the strait with sizable populations living on them. Since these islands were near Shiki Island, many sons of Diyang were cultivating there. On a remote, narrow island, the highest mountain was covered with barren, exposed boulders. At the top of the mountain stood a small temple, where 5 or 6 locals were silently praying. The statue before them was carved from a massive boulder but was strangely white. At that moment, it began to shake, causing fine stone fragments and dust to rain down on the worshippers. Speechless and fearful, the locals continued kneeling and bowing in reverence. Suddenly, the statue exploded, and a tiny baby jumped out from the rubble. He was covered in blood, but disturbingly had only a head and a pair of shoulders. Everything chest down was missing. The baby fell onto the ground with a thud, and a voice that sounded like a middle-aged man's came out of his mouth. Damn it, which immortal sect's disciple is he from? This baby, of course, was you." Tears of blood were streaming from his eyes. While the local worshippers were still stunned, Yu went up to one of them and stuffed his hand into his small mouth. In a swift motion, the baby swallowed an entire arm whole. As soon as he did so, he grew considerably, and it did not take long for him to soon reach the size of a 17 or 18-year-old young adult. Yet, his body was still horrifying to look at. It was only a head sitting on top of his shoulders. Yu's expression changed as the moment when Mutua was obliterated before his eyes suddenly flashed before his eyes. Damn, there's something strange about this person. He beckoned the last remaining local worshipper over, then raised his hand with nails that were as sharp as knives. Without warning, he severed the man's head and shoulders with a quick, clean slash. With his hands on the ground, Yu launched himself into the air and landed on the bloody stump of the corpse's chest, seamlessly merging himself with the body. Ah, so much better. Yu took 2 steps forward. A small smile briefly appeared on his face before it quickly faded and froze into a grim expression. PFFFT. An inexplicable fluctuation erupted through his upper shoulders, causing the mortal body below to disintegrate into pieces. Yu landed heavily on the ground again with a thud, feeling as though he had fallen into an ice cellar. What a brilliant immortal art. No matter how powerful a Buddhist cultivator's life-preserving abilities were, they could not sustain him in this form for long. While the scriptures declared that the physical body was just a vessel for the soul, one that could be replaced at will, a soul without this vessel would eventually drown in the secular world. In that moment, Yu realized the grim truth. Unless he found a treasured panacea that was suitable for blood nourishment, he would perish within 2 or 3 years. He simply could not afford to hide away and cultivate slowly. Time was of the essence. With no other choice, he steeled himself, summoned the wind, and flew toward the nearest island. Yu's heart was originally filled with hatred, but now, only fear remained. Good thing the eldest senior brother is dead and the Qinling Dao lineage is now in my hands. If I can survive this calamity, I'll leave for the southern sea and never return to this cursed place. The body, now nothing more than 2 shoulders and a head, floated through the air, drifting westward. Yu was consumed with despair, silently praying, "Oh, revered one, please bless me. There must be an island with mortals somewhere here that isn't guarded by Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators. Whether or not I can restore the Qinling Dao lineage depends on this." Chapter 570, Meeting. Li Qingheng arrived at Spleetered Island discreetly. She first went to Azure Ponsek's marketplace, where she spent some time searching for a restaurant to gather information. After a few detailed inquiries, she eventually learned that the Azure Ponsek's cultivator serving as the town guard of this place was named Ning Heiyuan. This person. Li Qingheng vaguely remembered this descendant of the Ning family. Years ago, while she was cultivating on Mount Yuding, Ning Heiyuan had passed through. He had pretended to be a rogue cultivator and challenged her to a spar. His mastery over techniques and spells was formidable, and he had a rather arrogant personality. She continued to ask about the strange natural phenomena, but found no one with knowledge of it. Every time she brought up the topic of the darkened sky in the region, the Eastern Sea cultivators only guessed that something huge had happened, yet none knew the cause of these strange phenomena. It seems like this information is known only to the Purple Mansion Realm cultivators and their trusted allies. It'll likely take more than a year for this to spread. Li Qingheng circled the marketplace, piecing together the information she managed to gather. Looks like the true monarch from the Yue cultivating sect was behind that. I wonder if he has any fruition attainment. The Yue cultivating sect is said to be the strongest out of the 3 sects, so this true monarch must be quite a figure. If it weren't for the talisman seed protecting me, I'd probably have forgotten about the scene I just witnessed. After all, those below Purple Mansion Realm are not even qualified to know about that. No wonder I haven't heard of any Golden Core Realm cultivators' activities in years. Even if a lower-ranked cultivator had seen them, they would probably forget the encounter. As she continued strolling through the market, noting that the materials in the Eastern Sea were vastly different from those in the mainland, 2 green-clad cultivators speaking in hushed tones caught her attention. "I heard the marketplace's owner is returning to report to the Immortal Sect. Who did the sect send to take his place? I heard it'll be the Golden Bowstring from the southern border. He's a strong and fierce man." Another cultivator, picking items from a nearby cabinet, whispered, "Several newcomers sent by the sect just arrived at my camp. They took that Taoist's jade ship here. Those guys truly got lucky. That Taoist even revealed a few secrets to them." The man beside him grew curious and impatiently asked, "What secrets? How should I know?" The green-clad cultivator rolled his eyes, then leaned closer and whispered, "I've only heard that this Taoist is Taoist Master Yuan Su's right-hand man. Even the marketplace owner shows him respect. Li Qinghang listened to the two cultivators' conversation and immediately understood that the Taoist in question was the elder of her family. Her lips curled up into a smirk. Second uncle has really become so powerful. To think that even Ning Heiyuan has to show him respect now. Ning Heiyuan had once caused a scene on Mount Yuding, leaving a deep impression on her. Now that she had confirmed that her elder was in this very marketplace, she left the building and sought out the person in charge of this place. This manager from the Azure Pond sect had overseen the marketplace for many years and was well versed in the ways of the world. As soon as he saw Li Qinghang, dressed in jade armor with a shiny spear, he recognized she was no ordinary Foundation Establishment realm cultivator. He smiled warmly and approached her with a humble demeanor. Upon hearing that she was looking for Li Xuanfeng, he spoke even more respectfully in her presence. The Taoist is extremely busy and usually has no time to meet most people. Perhaps if Fairy can provide me with some sort of credentials, it'll be easier for me to arrange a meeting. Li Qinghang smiled faintly, her voice soft as she replied, I am Li Qinghang of the Qingdu Li family, the Taoist's niece. Upon hearing this, the manager's eyes lit up as he chuckled. Ah, my apologies for not recognizing you as the daughter of a prestigious clan. Of course, this explanation is better than any credentials. Please give me a few moments, Fairy. Li Qinghang nodded. It was not long after the manager had left that a young man with a familiar face returned, riding the wind. He smiled warmly, laughing as he approached. Ah, you're here, Qinghang. You could have looked for me directly instead of going through all these formalities. He's Ning Heiyuan. Li Qinghang blinked in surprise. Although she could recognize him, he seemed more mature now. Even the aura he radiated had also changed. Where he had once been arrogant and overbearing, he now exuded warmth and calm. He was like a totally different person now. Our Retroflex A-Ring new letter 1D664 letter FF42, Ihachek letter 1D412, Qinghang greets fellow Taoist. Li Qinghang replied politely. A look of surprise flashed across Ning Heiyuan's eyes before a smile returned to his lips. It's been many years, yet you haven't changed at all, fellow Taoist, he remarked. He glanced at her, noting that she wore jade armor and appeared to be around 25 or 26 years old. He knew her cultivation had progressed quickly, making her appear very youthful. He showered her with a few more praises before explaining, Brother-in-law is currently away on a mission and will likely return in a few days. Please follow me to the hall and rest in the meantime, Taoist. Brother-in-law. Since Ning Heiyuan referred to Li Xuanfeng as his brother-in-law, he was effectively Li Qinghang's senior now. She was slightly caught off guard by this, but quickly masked it with a smile and accepted the invitation. While making their way to their destination, they reminisced about the past events on Mount Yuding. Ning Heiyuan's expression turned apologetic as he said, I was still very young and naive at the time, so I behaved childishly and offended your esteemed family. Please forgive me, Qinghang. Don't worry about it, fellow Taoist. If I had not sparred with you back then, I would never have realized that there were far more powerful cultivators out there. Li Qinghang replied. The two conversed politely and were able to move on from their awkward encounter in the past. After a few more exchanges, Ning Heiyuan's face lit up with delight, and he laughed, saying, Brother-in-law has returned. Wait here for a moment, Qinghang. I'll go to get him here. Li Qinghang was prepared to stay at Spleetered Island for 10 days to half a month and wait for Li Xuanfeng's return. She hadn't expected to meet him so soon. A smile appeared on her face as she nodded and replied, Sure. Ning Heiyuan summoned the wind and swiftly departed. Shortly after, he returned with a middle-aged man. The man had sharp eyes and eyebrows, sporting a short beard. His black gold spirit armor exuded a dim glow, and he carried a golden bow across his back. The clanging sound of metal boots echoed as he strode into the hall. When Li Qinghang saw his familiar face, which she hadn't seen in years, she stood up. Her voice was slightly choked with emotion as she greeted the man. Second uncle. Li Xuanfeng's heart stirred at his niece's emotional voice. He quickly walked up to her and said, Qinghang, you've reached Foundation Establishment realm. That's great. Li Qinghang's eyes welled up with tears as she answered softly, Aha. After Li Xuanfeng left home, her father, Li Xuanling, and her grandfather, Li Tanya, passed away around the same time. Her eldest uncle, Li Xuanxuan, had poor mental fortitude and was unable to step forward to shoulder the heavy responsibilities of their clan, so it naturally fell to their generation. The eldest in her generation, Li Yuanxiu, had died young. Her second brother, Li Yuanjiao, was consumed with keeping his promise to his grandfather. He was constantly on edge, to the point that he had to carefully consider every sentence 3 times before responding. Likewise, Li Qinghang felt like she was walking on thin ice. never daring to let her guard down for even a moment. Now that the gifted, decisive, and capable second uncle she remembered was standing in front of her, she was overwhelmed with emotion. For a moment, she was at a loss for words. Those from the Ning family had tactfully retreated from the hall long ago, giving them a moment of privacy. Li Xuanfeng took her hand in his and led her to his cave dwelling. Once inside, he closed the stone door behind them. He looked at her gently and chuckled. "King Hong, you've grown up," he commented, his voice slightly hoarse. Li Xuanfeng's face resembled Li Xuanling's, though his features were sharper and fiercer. Li Xuanling had always been gentle and calm, but now, as Li Xuanfeng looked at Li Qinghong with the same warmth, he reminded her so much of her father. The tears she had been holding back finally broke free, and she whispered softly, "Second uncle, my father, he and grandfather. They were killed by a Maha." Although Li Xuanfeng had already known about it, hearing the words again still gutted him. Resentment flared in his eyes, so intense that they seemed like they might start bleeding. "I know, don't worry, Honger, second uncle knows," he replied in a deep voice. Chapter 571, The Full Story. Li Qinghong composed herself and carefully recounted the events of recent years. When she finished, Li Xuanfeng, who had been listening quietly by her side, said softly, "I have not been at home to lend a hand with all these matters. It must have been hard on all of you." With that, he gently ran his hand over the black gold tiger belt at his waist, producing a glimmering jade slip in his palm. "This contains the talismans I acquired in the southern border. Take it back and let your eldest uncle examine it. Yue State is well suited to cultivating talismans. Our family could make great strides in this field." Li Qinghong accepted the slip, and after listening to Li Xuanfeng, asked with curiosity, "Yue State is suitable for cultivating talismans. This is the first I have heard of it." Li Xuanfeng paused briefly before replying softly, "It is not something widely known. Fortunately, we are within a secluded cave dwelling, so I can share it. It seems that the true monarch of Azure Pond sect has pristine water fruition attainment connected with talisman cultivation. His Dao field is located in Yue State, making the region a fertile ground for talismans." Now that he mentioned it, Li Qinghong realized that nearly everyone in Yue State knew at least a few talisman techniques. Talismans were indeed abundant, and although true mastery was rare, there were far more talisman cultivators than those skilled in alchemy or smithing. Even rogue cultivators would have a few reliable talismans in their possession. Nodding thoughtfully, Li Qinghong remembered the true monarch she had glimpsed by the shore earlier, hesitating to speak. She thought to herself, "It is said that the head of the Yue cultivating sect has unmatched divine abilities, greater than any of the three sects. I'd better keep quiet to avoid unnecessary trouble." Glancing down at the jade slip Li Xuanfeng had given her, she noticed faint, handwritten notes on its surface. The title read annotations on the upper enclosures, written by Chen Gao of Mount Daoxuan, detailing various techniques of talisman arts. Mount Daoxuan must be an ancient sect, Li Qinghong mused as she skimmed through it. She found several methods for crafting talisman swords appended at the end, finally understanding Li Xuanfeng's intent. She nodded, saying, "This will work well. Many in our family are sword cultivators, so we could forge some talisman swords for our younger generations. They could be passed down to bolster our clan's future." Li Xuanfeng nodded in agreement, then produced 2 jade bottles, one large and one small. The larger bottle was a blue-green hue, with what seemed to be a liquid flowing inside, while the smaller was the usual size for holding pills. He explained, "This is Yue Stone Liquid and Enduring Tranquility Spirit Pills, both to aid Foundation Establishment Realm cultivation. There are 5 portions of Yue Stone Liquid and 10 Enduring Tranquility Spirit Pills. Using these will greatly enhance one's progress in cultivation." Most of these items he had acquired in the southern border, though some he had saved over the years. Placing them on the table, he added in a low voice, "If there is anything else the family needs, let me know. I can spend some time at the marketplace to complete any purchases." Li Qinghong picked up the 2 jade bottles from the table. The Yue Stone Liquid inside the first was a translucent, pale green, and the Enduring Tranquility Spirit Pills in the second were a dusky color, 10 in total. She tilted the bottles slightly, letting one pill fall into her palm. She examined it closely, tracing the lines on its surface and confirming its properties with her spiritual sense before saying, "Second uncle, this is a blood chi pill." "What?" Li Xuanfeng paused. Li Qinghong chose her words carefully, speaking in a low tone, "Uncle. This pill was refined from blood chi. This practice has become widespread, both at home and abroad, though it remains a closely guarded secret. Azure Pond sect has been gathering blood chi over the years largely for this purpose." She then gave him a full explanation of the situation. Li Xuanfeng listened in silence, taking a long moment before he exhaled, saying, I have come to know a great deal while in the southern border, but I was entirely unaware of this. It seems Azure Pond sect has maintained very tight control over information within the city. His gaze drifted over the 2 jade bottles before waving dismissively. The Yuwa stone liquid can be used, but have Ning Heiyuan exchange the enduring tranquility spirit pill for something else. Li Qinghong nodded and finally inquired about the Ning family. As the matter was somewhat sensitive, she lowered her eyes, asking softly, Can the Ning family be trusted? Li Xuanfeng hesitated, then answered, Not entirely, but they are a reliable ally. Contrary to rumors, the Ning and Kai families are not that close-knit. The Ning family holds considerable influence within Azure Pond sect, so if our family wants to annex Moongaze Lake, we will need their support, along with that of Taoist Master Yuan Su. Li Xuanfeng continued, I asked around within the sect about Yuanwu Peak's affairs. It is clear that Taoist Master Yuanwu holds Yu Muxian in high regard, even offering his daughter's hand to him. If we fail to contain the situation, we may face Yuanwu's wrath. Li Qinghong understood that he was referring to the matter with Yu Muxian and sighed. None of us could easily handle him, let alone Taoist Master Yuanwu's possible retaliation. My brother sees this as a serious matter. He hopes to draw Yu Muxian out and resolve it directly before he reaches the Purple Mansion realm. That will be difficult to achieve, Li Xuanfeng replied, shaking his head. I have inquired with Hemian, and apparently this man is wholeheartedly dedicated to the immortal cultivation. He is practically devoid of desires or attachments, seeing everything except the path to ascension as a burden, bound by no worldly restrictions, and his cultivation method is aimed directly at reaching the Purple Mansion realm. He will not leave the sect without cause. His foundation establishment realm cultivation technique is an ancient one, causing unbearable pain during cultivation, with golden blades seemingly circulating through his meridians at every moment. Over the past 100 years, he is the only one known to have successfully practiced it. Rumor has it that he is calm to the point of cruelty, with a technique for refining Dharma artifacts using soul blood, and he has amassed considerable personal wealth, Li Xuanfeng explained. Li Qinghong listened intently as Li Xuanfeng recounted several stories and rumors circulating in the sect about Yu Muxian. Gradually, she formed an image of him in her mind, her expression growing worried, an emotionless, ruthless seeker of the Tao. That will be troublesome to handle. Seeing her concern, Li Xuanfeng said in a serious tone, You do not need to worry. I will send someone to gather more information. Stay here for a few months, and you can also take me to Yuanjia when the time comes. All right, Li Qinghong agreed naturally. She had several tasks on this trip. One was to collect thunder energy according to a schedule, and another was to explore the grotto heaven near the Kunyi Strait. She then voiced a concern. I just hope we do not alert him prematurely. It is of no consequence, Li Xuanfeng replied. The Yu family has grievances with ours, so asking around for such information would not raise suspicion. Hearing this, Li Qinghong added, Please also ask Ning Heiyuan. The family has discovered 1 or 2 valuable items, so it is best for an elder to inquire about them. RA circumflex letter 1033D, O symbol 34D, yeah S symbol 329, their family had found an underground river within the Great Juading, along with a reddish mineral, the size of a table, covered in white veining and accompanied by a piece of golden ore. Not knowing the value of these items, Li Qinghong worried about asking too openly, thinking it would be safer for Li Xuanfeng to handle it. After all, with a Purple Mansion realm cultivator behind them, any gain could be managed without fear. After hearing her description, Li Xuanfeng nodded. With a flash of spiritual sense, he summoned someone nearby. It was none other than Ning Dingbo, the eldest brother of the Ning family. Li Xuanfeng gestured to him and said, Fetch Ning Heiyuan. Chapter 572, The Full Story II. The hall where Ning Heiyuan resided was nearby, so he soon arrived, greeting both of them with a smile. Li Xuanfeng nodded slightly and asked, Any recent movements from Yuanwu Peak? Ning Heiyuan was momentarily surprised, then nodded in realization and replied, Brother-in-law, Yuanwu Peak cultivates with metal and iron properties, so with the Green Pine Temple matter. I hear Taoist Master Yuanwu is very interested. So it all comes back to Green Pine Temple. Li Qinghong's suspicions were confirmed. Li Xuanfeng took a moment to recall and then spoke gravely, As I remember, Green Pine Temple was known for its arts of swamp metal and fire virtue. Most of what is left there should be cultivation techniques, correct? Exactly, Ning Heiyuan replied softly. The temple holds various ancient arts, though those relating to swamp metal and fire virtue are more recent and abundant. Most of them are practicable, making them especially coveted, and these ruins are about to be opened to a select few, with all the sects making preparations. Li Xuanfeng had heard vague mentions of this before, though he hadn't delved into it and knew little of the specifics. In a low voice he said, "Explain the background of this matter in detail." Certainly, Ning Heiyuan nodded and began to recount. The story begins with Chu Yi of the Li Fire Spear. Then he began to narrate the story. The true monarch of the Luoxia Grotto, heaven possessed vast divine abilities and profound insight into the mysteries of heaven and earth. With his fruition attainment, he incarnated as a mortal and journeyed northward. Although we lesser cultivators do not fully understand his purpose, we witness strange phenomena arising from the void, triggering the fates of countless individuals. He spoke in a somewhat mysterious manner, but feeling he hadn't conveyed it clearly, continued more directly. In essence, the true monarch's reincarnated form descended into the world, and various figures aligned with his fate emerged in succession. These individuals, possessing threads of fate, rose from all corners, chosen by heaven as its favored ones. So that's how Su Zio came to be. Li Qingheng had a sudden realization. Figures like Su Zio and Tu Longjian were originally supporting characters in the true monarch's grand narrative. With this new understanding, she listened as Ning Heiyuan continued, but the true monarch's reincarnated form returned to Mount Luoxia rather abruptly, leaving this group of fated ones still wandering across the north and south, stirring up countless disturbances. Li Xuanfeng frowned slightly and asked, could the Taoist masters identify them? Knowing the nature of the 3 sects and 7 gates, Li Xuanfeng understood they would see such individuals as invaluable resources, or at the very least, useful tools. He doubted they would let them slip by. Ning Heiyuan offered a wry smile and replied quietly, even the Taoist masters could not recognize them outright. All they know is that a group of such individuals exists, scattered among the common folk. Although the Taoist masters could not identify them directly, those who stood out from the crowd were almost certainly people bearing a thread of fate. The sect has focused on a few of these individuals, recording them all in the sect's registry, Ning Heiyuan explained. He paused briefly and added with a slight smile, that Su Zio from your clan likely belongs to this group. He happened to form a connection with Crimson Reef Island. Seeing that Li Xuanfeng and Li Qingheng weren't particularly interested in discussing Su Zio, Ning Heiyuan tactfully skimmed over the topic, continuing in a quiet tone. Green Pine Temple is located on the island, and entry to it depends entirely on fate. How could the Taoist masters tolerate such uncertainty? So, Taoist master Tianyuan of the Golden Feather sect proposed gathering this group of fated individuals and sending them all to Green Pine Island. With their intertwined fates, after a few days or weeks, one of them is bound to unlock the grotto heaven. Ning Heiyuan continued, the Green Pine Temple's grotto heaven cannot accommodate Purple Mansion realm cultivators, so each of them is simply waiting for the right moment to enter in single file. Only now did Li Xuanfeng and Li Qingheng fully grasp the situation, as the many pieces of recent events started to come together. Li Qingheng frowned and asked, but why not bring these fated individuals into the sects? Dispatching them as sect disciples would give them loyalty, and afterward they could officially be inducted. Ning Heiyuan looked slightly embarrassed and lowered his voice. These people, they are meant to be divided among the Taoist masters afterward. Making them official disciples would look bad, and if they were part of the sect, we would have to provide them with Dharma artifacts. By sending them out to roam as rogue cultivators, they will discover countless grotto heavens and treasure troves on their own, and their artifacts will still be high quality. Ultimately, the sect gains it all for free. So that is the reason, truly, a clever scheme, Li Qingheng murmured. She thought of these so-called fated ones, who, despite their current glory, were unknowingly being guided toward a deadly confrontation at Green Pine Temple, where they would all end up as keys for Purple Mansion realm cultivators to unlock the ruins. She could only shake her head silently. Ning Heiyuan sighed and said quietly, this is not the first time. It is the reward the Luoxia Immortal sect promised Jiangnan. Now that the details were fully laid out, the sequence of events became clear. Li Xuanfeng paused, then said gravely, it seems that fate has its limits. It cannot contend against the divine abilities of Purple Mansion realm cultivators. Since you mentioned that this is not the first time, has no one ever managed to escape? There are always exceptions, Ning Heiyuan replied with a slight smile. 200 years ago, the Purple Mansion Realm cultivators in Jiangnan wanted to open the Daoxuan Grotto Heaven at the Kunyi Strait. One fated individual managed to charm a fairy from an immortal sect, and after discovering the truth, they joined forces with another person of destiny. Together, they ventured deep into the Grotto Heaven, using their courage and fate to make a daring escape. Our retroflex A tilde small capen letter 22b letter 10331 E circumflex letter 1E61 Ning Heiyuan continued. That individual was named Gu Shentong. He is now the island master of Crimson Reef Island, and his Dao companion is Fairy Tianwen of the Golden Feather sect. As for the other who joined him, their name is lost to time, but they were known as Taoist Chengxiao. He looked intently at the two of them and added quietly, Gu Shentong hid overseas, quietly cultivated to the Purple Mansion realm, and later returned openly to Jiangnan to establish his own sect, which is now known as Chengxiao Gate. The revelation was significant, and both Li Xuanfeng and Li Qinghong were taken aback, even Li Xuanfeng raising an eyebrow in mild disbelief. Li Qinghong, surprised, asked, "So these two sects, did they intervene in the Green Pine Temple matter?" "They are very much involved," Ning Heiyuan gave a sarcastic smile and replied in a low voice, with interests at the forefront, who would let this opportunity slip by? Should they release every destined one, allowing them to establish their own sects and achieve the Purple Mansion realm, ultimately squeezing their own territory? The two Taoist masters would never permit that. Ning Heiyuan chuckled and said, "From what my uncles have told me, these two of all the Purple Mansion realm cultivators are the most wary of fated ones. I will not speak much of Taoist Master Chengxiao, since he resides overseas and I do not know him well. But Taoist Master Gu alone has personally taken down two of them, both of whom he destroyed completely with his Purple Mansion realm power, erasing those two arrogant young cultivators in the embryonic breathing realm, body and soul." He spoke as if he were sharing an amusing anecdote, though his tone held an undertone of schadenfreude and even a hint of envy he himself didn't seem to notice. He continued with a smile, "I saw it myself that year. That young cultivator, riding on his thread of fate, had overcome every obstacle and was just about to escape overseas. But Taoist Master Gu shattered the great void, descended right there, and wielded a grade 6 spell combined with his divine ability, leaving the youth not even a sliver of a chance. He annihilated the young cultivator's entire clan." Ning Heiyuan shrugged. "He forged his own divine abilities through fate and understands its power better than anyone. How could he be careless? He will never let one slip away." Chapter 573, Zhang Kaiyan I. After Ning Heiyuan finished speaking, the two understood each other's intentions. Li Qinghong then asked about the treasures in the cave dwelling, and Ning Heiyuan, hearing her description, replied softly, "I will send someone to investigate right away." Li Qinghong nodded. Ning Heiyuan hesitated for a moment before saying, "Brother-in-law, there is news from the sect." Li Qinghong, catching the subtle hint, respectfully excused herself and withdrew. Once she was gone, Li Xuanfeng turned his attention to Ning Heiyuan, who continued, "The market at Unison Sea has been attacked again by that water ape. Do you want to seize the opportunity and head over there yourself, or should I send someone to take care of it?" This water ape was an issue that Yuan Su had previously mentioned, and Li Xuanfeng had no intention of letting Ning Heiyuan handle it. He replied, "I will enter seclusion for half a month and then depart." Ning Heiyuan had only asked out of courtesy, as he wouldn't dare interfere in the Taoist master's matters. He nodded and agreed, then accepted the enduring tranquility spirit pills that Li Xuanfeng handed him, who said quietly, "Exchange these for some pills that also aid Foundation Establishment realm cultivation." He cast Ning Heiyuan a sharp glance and added in a serious tone, "Make sure they are pure." Ning Heiyuan hesitated briefly, then nodded with lowered eyes. Understood. He composed himself, took a small mirror from his sleeve, and handed it to Li Xuanfeng, saying, "The water ape is cunning and adept at concealing itself. It is quite difficult to deal with. This is the Glimmering Inquiry Mirror, a Dharma artifact left here by the Taoist master many years ago, specifically for detecting hidden forms." Li Xuanfeng examined the mirror. It was a clear blue, about the size of his palm, radiant and crystal clear, a finely crafted Foundation Establishment realm artifact that seemed quite extraordinary. Ning Heiyuan explained, "This artifact contains a trace of divine ability, allowing it to detect illusions. Almost all concealment techniques below the Purple Mansion realm will be revealed when exposed to this mirror." Li Xuanfeng studied it carefully and nodded, "A fine artifact." With a respectful bow, Ning Heiyuan retreated, leaving Li Xuanfeng alone in the cave dwelling, holding a jade cup in his hand, silent. Once the stone door had closed, Li Xuanfeng pondered to himself, a late-stage Foundation establishment realm water ape, to send me such a long way to deal with it. Yuan Su must have more in mind than just this. Is it a test or an opportunity? Lu Xuanfeng speculated, the Green Pine Temple ruins will open soon. If Yuan Su plans to send someone there besides Ning Wan, I am likely the strongest among his followers. He would never risk Ning Wan, so it is most likely me. Reflecting on Ning Heiyuan's earlier explanation of the Green Pine Temple situation, Li Xuanfeng finally felt some clarity. Perhaps Taoist Master Yuan Su had taken him under his wing all those years ago precisely with this matter in mind. The timing seemed about right. After a moment of contemplation, Li Xuanfeng took several healing pills from his storage pouch, selected 2 suitable ones to consume, and entered seclusion in preparation. Li Qinghang spent only a few days in the market before members of the Ning family came to see her. Ning Heiyuan arrived in a splendid robe, accompanied by 2 guest cultivators. Li Qinghang had been training with her spear these past days, her hair bound and dressed in light armor, giving her a capable and spirited look. After a brief conversation, Ning Heiyuan pulled a few red jade stones from his sleeve, lining them up from left to right, and said quietly, "Take a look, Qinghang. See which one best matches the description." The Ning family's wealth was immense, so they had obtained 1 sample of each possible spirit item. Before leaving, Li Qinghang had made one last visit to the cave and now pointed to the one on the far left. "My second uncle showed me before. This is the one." Ning Heiyuan sighed with a hint of regret. "As I suspected. From your description, it seems to be Earthview Bloodstone. This item is barely considered a Foundation Establishment Realm spirit item, but it was highly valued 1,000 years ago, even coveted by Purple Mansion Realm cultivators." After a quick calculation, Ning Heiyuan explained, "As for its current worth, although rare, its value is not particularly high, but since you mentioned it is the size of a table, it could perhaps be considered a treasure." Li Qinghang pondered for a moment and then said, "Please tell me more." Ning Heiyuan cleared his throat and explained, "Earthview Bloodstone is very effective in restoring missing parts and replenishing blood qi. It can heal severed limbs and is also useful for cultivating certain specialized spells. In the past, there were many spells that could not even be practiced without it. Letter 1D445, letter 1D4EA, letter 2115, letter 22B, letter 10331. Yes, Ning Heiyuan elaborated. Nowadays, though, blood qi can be purchased in any ordinary market, and with cheap alternatives available, this spirit item has long since fallen out of regular use. At best, it is simply high-quality blood qi." "I see," Li Qinghang replied with a slight smile appearing on her face. She thought to herself, "This item may be worthless to them, but it is quite precious for my family." Ning Heiyuan continued, "As for that palm-sized golden stone, it is likely altar goldstone, which is very durable and serves as a Foundation Establishment Realm material. It can be used to craft Dharma shields and similar artifacts, though it is a bit small." He chuckled. "That is fairly common, though, since the 3 gold fruition attainment grows in the seas, and many spirit items come with golden stone byproducts. I would imagine more than 50% of your clan's mines produce golden stones, do they not? More than just 50%. All 3 of our family's mining veins yield golden stone. Even the Xia family's green origin copper essence vein nearby is pure golden stone." Li Qinghang grumbled inwardly, but only smiled and nodded on the surface. She then asked Ning Heiyuan about the best methods for collecting the ores, planning to head to Zongquan Island with Li Xuanfeng once he had dealt with his current affairs. Li Xuanfeng's wounds healed quickly. Although they had initially seemed severe, most of the damage was superficial, caused by physical strain rather than actual harm. With his talisman qi, such injuries were minor. "Strength to move mountains, the progress has been immense over these years," he mused. As Li Xuanfeng's cultivation advanced, the power of strength to move mountains had also increased significantly. Combined with the treasures he had consumed from the southern border, his strength now surpassed even Foundation Establishment Realm demon beasts, allowing him to unleash such terrifying power with his Golden Age longbow. After giving Ning Heiyuan a few final instructions, he took to the skies on his golden shuttle, heading northeast and riding along a series of water veins. The sea below his feet gradually turned a brilliant blue. Unison Sea, Li Xuanfeng muttered absent-mindedly. Unison Sea lay at the opposite end from Scarlet Pristine Sea and was even larger in scale. It was the domain of the Dragon Clan, with its waters reflecting a rich azure hue. The sea stretched for thousands of li, with few islands and exceptionally deep waters. Normally, under the sunlight, Unison Sea was a seamless blend of sea and sky, a striking sight. However, his timing was unfortunate, as an anomaly from the eastern sea had cast everything into pitch-black darkness, so thick that one could barely see a hand in front of them. Li Xuanfeng broke through the darkened sea region and finally spotted a small island. It wasn't large, about the size of a small town, and was fortified with an earthen-colored formation, standing at the ready. According to the instructions, this should be the market town, he murmured. He descended slowly, and sure enough, he saw signs of devastation along the coastline, evidence of considerable destruction. Puzzled, he asked himself, what has gotten into this water ape? Azure Pond sect is famous across the seas. It is as if the ape is tired of living. Just as he stopped, an elder flew out from the market town, casting a glance at him with a hint of uncertainty. Are you General Li? It was the first time Li Xuanfeng had been addressed as general outside the southern border. He nodded. That is right. With a large hand, he touched the black gold tiger emblem on his belt, producing a white command token. The elder quickly verified it and replied eagerly, At last, we have been awaiting your arrival, my lord. Chapter 574, Zhang Qian II. The two descended, and Li Xuanfeng paused briefly before the formation. The elder caught on immediately, taking a formation token glowing with an earthy yellow light from his waist. The formation appeared to be operating at full capacity. After taking control of the formation, Li Xuanfeng deactivated it with a light command. With me on the island, there is no need for such heavy defenses. Yes, the elder led him down with a respectful bow, introducing himself. I am Yuan Hua, at your service, General. Li Xuanfeng glanced at him and asked, The Yuan clan of Mushroom Forest Plain. The very same, Yuan Hua answered. Li Xuanfeng nodded slightly, recognizing the connection between their families. Wasting no time, he got straight to the point. What is the situation with the water ape? Yuan Hua shook his head and sighed. This creature is part of the dragon clan. It has some backing and does not fear us. Its strength is formidable, and it has beaten us so badly we do not dare step off the island. This has been dragging on for nearly half a year, disrupting our business considerably. We have already evacuated all unrelated personnel from the island, a member of the dragon clan. Li Xuanfeng was slightly surprised, but recalling Yuan Su's earlier words, he immediately considered, could it be that Yuan Su intends for me to serve as a pawn to provoke the dragons, and ultimately throw me under the bus to take the blame? Running through his thoughts quickly, Li Xuanfeng felt a surge of doubt, his initial judgment beginning to waver. He thought to himself, something is not right. This market isn't Ning's property, it's a sect-owned business, and at most, it could be considered a Kai family asset. Why would Yuan Su go to such lengths to help others for no gain? Settling his mind, he asked, why is this water ape giving you such trouble without reason? Yuan Hua, noticing Li Xuanfeng's contemplative expression, had initially held his tongue. Now he replied in a low voice, we asked that very question some time ago. The water ape claimed that someone stole his precious herbs and is hiding in the market. He demanded that we deactivate the formation so he could search freely, but how could we allow that? If we opened the formation, he would do whatever he pleased. Li Xuanfeng paused, then said quietly, take me down. Prepare a report detailing all the water ape's immortal foundation abilities, dharma artifacts, and techniques. Yuan Hua led him to the most lavish hall, vacating it for his use. He handed over a small note, then, seeing Li Xuanfeng wave him off, wisely took his leave. Li Xuanfeng read the note aloud. Water ape, brutal by nature, with a fondness for human flesh, and his Dao foundation is secret white mercury, rather unusual. Capable of concealing himself, lurking in the sea, with a body like polished silver and skilled in spells. No wonder he caught the attention of the dragon clan. Yuan Su's exact words were that the water ape is the primary target of this mission. Under no circumstances should it be allowed to survive. There's no path to reconciliation. Li Xuanfeng held the note in silence, mentally reviewing Yuan Su's arrangements and deducing, the water ape likely misread the situation. This claim of stolen herbs hidden on the island is probably true. And that makes the situation clear. He flew up from the hall, ascending above the island, and retrieved a small blue mirror the size of his palm from within his robes, the glimmering inquiry mirror. Is this mirror meant to search for the water ape? I doubt it. Li Xuanfeng activated the mirror, closing his eyes as bright blue light streamed from its surface, sweeping across the island. This mirror was certainly not as refined as his family's mirror. He had to channel his mana for several breaths before the scene below became clear. The island was now occupied solely by Azure Pond sect cultivators, all wearing green robes. In the center of the island, at the spot with the densest spiritual energy, a lone figure sat cross-legged, a young man in deep meditation, a peak chi cultivation realm. If his instincts were correct, this young man was undoubtedly the one the water ape had been hunting. Noticing the youth's cultivation level, Li Xuanfeng muttered under his breath, peak chi cultivation realm, stole precious herbs, he must have a thread of fate. As he pondered, clarity settled in his mind. It seems the water ape does not understand the situation. It has foolishly entangled itself, trapping this young man on the island and delaying the affairs of the Purple Mansion realm cultivators. Yuan Su sent me to kill it, to clear the path for this youth. Letter 16B1, letter 1F00, letter 1033D, letter 22B, letter 1D587. He nodded slightly. As for the water ape, it was likely that its fate had become entangled in some way. Perhaps its backing had chosen to ignore it, or it had unknowingly offended someone, or it was caught in a factional struggle after the fall of its demon king, now destined to serve as a sacrificial pawn. His gaze returned to the mirror in his hand, and a sense of doubt rose in his heart. There was no need to give me this mirror. I could simply eliminate the demon. Yuan Su's intention is likely to offer me an opportunity. With this thought, the black gold armor on Li Xuanfeng's body began to manifest, and the golden bow appeared with a fierce glint. He descended on the wind, landing silently beside the young man. Quite the choice. This is one of the best cultivation spots on the island. He remained silent, standing quietly with his hands clasped behind his back next to the youth. The young man had a refined face and sharp eyes, dressed in neat attire. Though not particularly handsome, he possessed a striking presence. Li Xuanfeng observed him briefly, thinking to himself, the nature of fate is truly extraordinary. What sort of power must it be to allow someone to repeatedly avert danger? The youth's eyelids twitched slightly before he slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was deep, but upon seeing Li Xuanfeng, he froze, his face paling in shock and disbelief. What? He had merely been meditating, yet suddenly, a middle-aged man clad in black gold armor, with an eagle-like gaze and imposing mid-foundation establishment realm aura, had appeared before him. Terrified, the youth instinctively leaped up, though his usual composure faltered for a moment. But almost immediately, his mind raced, and he dropped to one knee in respect, speaking in a steady voice, Junior Zhang Kaiyan greets Senior. I entered this blessed land by mistake. I beg for your forgiveness. Having quietly occupied someone else's cultivation ground, only to be caught red-handed, Zhang Kaiyan found himself in an incredibly awkward situation. Unable to come up with any smooth words, he could only state his case plainly, subtly gripping a talisman in his sleeve and scanning his surroundings with his spiritual sense in vigilance. Zhang Kaiyan mused, this is troublesome. This formation could protect me, or trap me within. Li Xuanfeng regarded him calmly and said quietly, there is no need to be tense. And as for that talisman, you do not need to clutch it so tightly. I am not like those weak foundation establishment realm cultivators. Even an ancient talisman would not last 2 strikes against my arrows. Zhang Kaiyan, shocked at being so easily seen through, replied respectfully, I truly had no other options, which is why I took shelter in this blessed land. I am willing to offer a spirit item as compensation. Cautious one, this little guy, observing the youth's taut stance, ready to flee at any moment, Li Xuanfeng spoke again. You did well. That water ape crossed your path and was fated to meet this calamity. So, he is an enemy of that demon. No wonder. Relieved, Zhang Kaiyan also sensed a certain meaning in Li Xuanfeng's words and respectfully replied, I am not a disciple of any prestigious sect, merely a rogue cultivator from the Eastern Sea. That water ape devours humans daily. When I accidentally entered its cave dwelling and took its precious herb, it pursued me all the way to your market. I have been unable to leave since. Chapter 575, Breakthrough. This formation is the only thing that makes that demon wary. I truly have nowhere else to go, Zhang Kaiyan said, glancing at Li Xuanfeng's expression as he subtly flattered him. He then removed a storage pouch from his waist and offered it with both hands. This contains everything I took from the demon's cave dwelling. I am willing to give it all back to you, Senior. Li Xuanfeng glanced at it, but since he had no way of knowing what arrangements Yuan Su might have made, he didn't open it. He waved his hand and said, keep it. Whatever you have obtained is yours. Zhang Kaiyan looked at him incredulously. Noticing the stern expression and fierce aura of Li Xuanfeng, he felt he was beginning to understand his character and respectfully replied, as you command, Senior. After a brief, uncomfortable pause, he lowered his voice further. It is just. I would like to stay on this island for a while longer. If I were to leave now, I fear I would fall victim to that demon. He quickly added, I will not stay here for free. Whatever damage that demon has caused, I am willing to compensate fully. No need. Li Xunfeng responded simply, causing Zhang Qian's face to flicker with surprise before Li Xunfeng added, almost casually, I will leave the island to kill it myself. You may go freely afterward. What? Zhang Qian looked at him, stunned. He took in the imposing figure clad in black gold armor, the sharp, cold gaze and the exaggerated longbow on his back, shaped almost like a pair of eagle wings. He murmured to himself, which killer from the Devil Gate is this? How domineering. Zongquan Island. Over the years, Zongquan Island had flourished, with new palaces and formations built, and a growing number of cultivators. Thanks to the resources and inheritances Li Yunjiao had left behind before going into seclusion, the island had accumulated wealth and was thriving. Atop a high mountain on the island, a stone door remained tightly closed, while springs trickled gently. At dawn, a pale blue mist would rise from the mountain, drifting down in delicate showers. This phenomenon, caused by a Foundation establishment realm, cultivator's seclusion, had led the island residents to name the mountain Morning Mist Mountain. With a Foundation establishment realm cultivator guarding it, the island's people finally felt like a true community rather than transient visitors. Each morning, as they looked up to see the soft blue mist, men, women, and children alike felt a comforting peace. Time in the mountains passed unnoticed. After 3 years in seclusion, Li Yunjiao's Sea of Qi had grown dense and powerful, swirling upward and coalescing into 2 fierce water dragons that danced and coiled within his Sea of Qi. Mid-Foundation Establishment Realm. Success. He took a deep breath, feeling refreshed. Ordinarily, with his temperament, Li Yunjiao would have sought out a blessed land for a decade or 2 of cultivation after reaching the Foundation Establishment Realm. However, he didn't have that luxury now. The breakthrough had not been difficult. Li Yunjiao was, after all, a prodigy who reached the Foundation Establishment Realm at 40. The Boundless Ocean, or the Jing Dragon King, progressed swiftly in the Eastern Sea, and advancing to Mid-Foundation Establishment Realm was almost natural for him. Mid-Foundation Establishment Realm. My mana has doubled, and now I can summon 2 water dragons. Li Yunjiao took a moment to assess his abilities, feeling reasonably satisfied. The River 1 Qi technique was only a grade 3 technique. While it had given him an advantage over other rogue cultivators at the Qi cultivation realm, he found himself competing against Immortal Gate disciples at the Foundation Establishment realm, where the technique's shortcomings became apparent. In Jiangnan, Immortal Gate disciples usually cultivated grade 4 techniques, while true disciples and Purple Mansion realm heirs practiced grade 5 or even grade 6 arts. Li Yunjiao's grade 3 technique meant his foundation's profundity would inevitably fall short in comparison. Unbothered, Li Yunjiao emerged from his cave dwelling. Waiting outside the stone door was Zhang Yan and his entourage. Seeing the phenomenon on the mountain dissipate, Zhang Yan knew Li Yunjiao had emerged from seclusion and stood respectfully outside. Nearby stood a thin-faced monk with modest attire and pale lips, who offered a soft smile and said, "Congratulations, senior." Li Yunjiao nodded slightly, noting that King Heng's aura had also improved. He returned the sentiment with a polite "Congratulations to you as well," then took to the outside. The island was lively and full of vitality. Li Yunjiao scanned his surroundings but saw no temples or statues. Looking at King Heng beside him, he raised his brow slightly in surprise and remarked quietly, "Quite the immortal atmosphere." For years he had left the island to its own devices, with King Heng, a master monk, overseeing it. He had expected the island to be filled with temples upon his return, so he was somewhat taken aback. Zhang Yan, perceptive to his reaction, spoke softly, "Master Monk King Heng does not establish temples. We have even tried to persuade him, suggesting he could at least create a golden statue for people to worship, but..." Over the years, King Heng had gained considerable respect on the island, tending to the sick and healing injuries. Many of the island's residents wanted to erect a golden statue of him and build a temple in his honor, but he refused each offer. Observing Li Yunjiao and his attendant discussing the matter, King Heng murmured, "To build a grand statue gilded in gold is to instill fear in the people with an imposing image, and to construct large temples is to deceive the masses with rituals and incense offerings. These are things we of the Liao River Temple abstain from." Li Yunjiao pondered this and, glancing at King Heng, asked, "Then how does the master monk pass down his teachings?" King Heng narrowed his eyes slightly. The past few years of performing good deeds on the island seemed to have furthered his cultivation. Pressing his palms together, he replied in a soft voice, "The Dharma of the Revered One requires no transmission, no form, no scripture." Those who observe me with wisdom will receive the teachings of my Liao River temple. We of the Liao River do not bow to others. We cultivate our own nature. Letter 1D41A Letter 1D66 Fa Butta a Zhang Yan, stroking his beard thoughtfully as he listened, murmured, Master Monk. It is no wonder that the Liao River Dao lineage has gradually fallen out of favor. In these times, everyone seeks a quick and effective method to progress each day. The Liao River's teachings, alas, Zhang Yan gave a wry smile. He had a foster son who admired King Heng and had wanted to become his disciple, so Zhang Yan had approached King Heng several times to learn more. Shaking his head, he added, the Liao River Dao lineage is truly too difficult. I have heard that cultivators of the 7 worldly ways need only chant the Maha incantation once to gain progress in their cultivation, while the Liao River requires one to fully experience the myriad forms of human nature just to begin. How can it compare? King Heng remained silent, only smiling with lowered eyes. Li Yunjie was reminded of the Northern Wang family's sword immortals. He had heard that their Dao lineage was similarly demanding. Deciding not to dwell on it, he changed the subject and asked, has something happened? Why is the sky so dark and overcast, stretching for thousands of li? As far as he could see, the skies were filled with dense, dark clouds. Zhang Yan shook his head and replied, how could we know about such matters? Zhongquan Island is in a remote area, and we rarely visit the market, so we are unlikely to hear any news. Li Yunjie extended his spiritual sense, and 2 blue water dragons spiraled beneath his feet as he carefully sensed the environment. He noticed that the flow of his immortal foundation energy was slightly less smooth and efficient than it had been in previous years. Previously, cultivation here in the Eastern Sea was more than 5% faster than in Jiangnan, but now it is barely half that. Riding the wind, he looked at the lightning flickering among the clouds. Zhang Yan continued, Huiyao visited about half a year ago, claiming it came to gather information. We told it that you were in seclusion and sent it away. Not long ago, another cultivator arrived, claiming to be from the mainland, and delivered a letter. He took a letter from his sleeve, which Li Yunjie accepted with a nod. The creature had benefited from his favor and influence, and even remembered to pay its respects. Li Yunjie used a secret technique to unlock the letter and began to read it closely. Crow's thoughts. Hey everyone, this is a message from all the readers currently working on the Mirror Legacy wiki page. There is also a family tree. One of our fellow TML readers, Glimp, has started a wiki page for the novel, and we're working together to expand it. Open book, check it out here. As of now, a lot of the other readers on Discord are joining in and contributing. Due to the complex dynamics of this novel, we need more contributors to make this a full-fledged wiki. If you're interested in helping out, join our Discord and check out the thread from the Mirror Legacy channel. Let's build this together. Chapter 576, 2 Arrows I. Li Yunjie glanced over the letter, his expression relaxing as a slight smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. Tucking the letter into his robe, he didn't say much, but turned to Zhang Yan and asked in a quiet tone, how have the island's finances been over the past few years? After covering expenses, we have a surplus of only 2 spirit stones. As for construction, formations, and rewards, those cost even more. Zhang Yan took out the records, looking a bit embarrassed. Located in such a remote area, Zhongquan Island had little income in recent years, though the population had grown. If they counted the costs of formations and spirit patties, the island had actually operated at a loss. The Li family hadn't expected any major returns from this outpost in the Eastern Sea, simply wanting a foothold there. Li Yunjie nodded slightly and replied, no matter. As they were talking, the dark clouds outside the island parted, and a variety of fish and turtles swam through the open space. A creature with a fish's face and bird-like wings descended outside the formation and called out, humans below, open the formation at once. It is Huiyao, Zhang Yan said with some tension. Li Yunjie waved a hand and replied, let him in. With that, he returned to the main hall and took his seat. Before long, Huiyao entered a creature resembling a black carp. Huiyao had once accepted both bribes and threats from the Li family to conceal certain offerings. Now Huiyao had transformed his form, appearing with a fish face, a human body, and scaled wings beneath his arms. As soon as he entered, he announced, Li Yunjie, so you have finally come out of seclusion. Something big has happened. Having read the letter Li Qinghong sent, Li Yunjie had a general understanding of the situation. Sipping his tea, he asked, oh, does the dragon son of the Zhenan Water Palace have kinship with that fallen demon king? Huiyao paused, realizing that this person had his own background. Rubbing his hands together, he shook his head. Not kin, exactly. Our faction never saw eye to eye with the demon kings. You have stayed in this remote place for so long, and now you finally have a chance to return. Li Yuanjia wasn't particularly interested in the internal politics of the Dragon clan. Frowning, he asked, "Are you saying, this situation will affect us here? You are planning to return with the Dragon Son?" Huiyao shook his head, a trace of envy flashing across his face. "I have not even reached the Foundation establishment realm. Where would I get that kind of good fortune? I am just accompanying a few higher-ups from the palace back. When we leave, there may well be a new master appointed here." Li Yuanjia gave a slight nod. Huiyao then lowered his voice and continued, "But for now, with no one governing the seas, it is a prime opportunity for us to expand. I hope you could lend a hand." He added in a fawning tone, "If we gain higher status within the palace, it will be easier to help our allies, will it not?" Li Yuanjia understood immediately, but he had no desire to be used as a pawn by this demon. Shaking his head, he sighed, "I have an assignment at the moment, so I fear I will not be able to assist." Huiyao added, "Oh, there is still plenty of time. It is only a rumor for now. When the time comes, all you need to do is join forces with me to kill a few demons, and that will be the end of it. My Hui clan will certainly offer generous thanks." Li Yuanjia glanced at him, nodding non-committally as he thought, when the family needs talisman qi, perhaps it will be worth considering. Pleased, Huiyao took his leave, riding the wind in high spirits. Li Yuanjia then turned to King Heng. "Master Monk, could I trouble you to guard the island for a few days? I need to travel outside." He planned to visit Spleetered Island but didn't give specific details. With arrangements made, he stepped off the island and flew northward on the wind, converging sea. When Li Xuanfeng spoke, Zhang Kaiyan's face lit up with joy, and he nodded, bowing deeply. The initial shock he felt gradually eased, replaced by a sense of confusion. Could it be that even the Devil Gate has such righteous individuals? Not only does he not want my precious herbs, but he also does not ask for compensation, and he is going to slay that demon. Having grown up in the Eastern Sea, Zhang Kaiyan was naturally wary, always prepared to humble himself or bow if needed, but rarely trusting anyone as truly honorable. He thought to himself, but this man's aura is overwhelming, and he doesn't seem to mean me any harm. I'll just have to wait and see what he does. As long as he doesn't catch me off guard, I still have a chance to escape with this ancient talisman in my hand. While he pondered, Li Xuanfeng finally spoke, his voice calm, "Come with me, let us go meet them." Yes, Zhang Kaiyan had no choice but to obey. As he exited the formation and looked up, he saw that the dark clouds overhead were spreading out unimpeded, and he couldn't help but exclaim in alarm, "Senior, the island's protective formation is not active. That demon can sense my aura, it is likely already on its way." "That is exactly what I want," Li Xuanfeng replied casually, stepping down the stone stairs. Yuan Hua and several others waited respectfully at the foot of the mountain. Seeing the additional figure behind Li Xuanfeng, they dared not ask questions and instead greeted him in low voices. "Greetings, Taoist." Zhang Kaiyan noticed the respectful expressions on the faces of the market's attendants and realized that the man beside him was not only powerful, but also held a high reputation within Azure Pond, with a prestigious status. He silently wondered, could he be from the Kai family? A letter 1D40D, a letter 162, E graves Hachek. Before he could think further, Li Xuanfeng approached the attendants, shook his head, and said, "This demon is coming for him. When the fighting begins, protect him." Yuan Hua didn't fully understand, but as Li Xuanfeng had come on the Taoist master's orders, there was undoubtedly a reason. He didn't dare question it, only nodding and respectfully replying, "Understood." Li Xuanfeng then looked back at Zhang Kaiyan and said quietly, "This demon must hate you deeply. Stay with these men and do not leave the formation." Hearing this, Zhang Kaiyan finally believed him. There was no way Li Xuanfeng would go to such lengths just to play games with him. Cupping his fist, he said, "May I know Senior's name? I am Li Xuanfeng under Taoist Master Yuan Su." As soon as he finished speaking, a massive wave surged in the distance, moving closer with the sound of thunderous roars. Li Xuanfeng looked toward it, standing with his hands behind his back, and remarked pointedly, "The domain of Azure Pond is vast. It is not like the Eastern Sea where one claims land by occupying islands. The structure differs greatly from that of the Eastern Sea. There are distinctions between family clans, immortal peaks, and Taoist masters that should not be generalized." Zhang Kaiyan responded thoughtfully, "It sounds similar to the Dragon Palace's structure. I am enlightened, Senior." Rain began to fall in a light drizzle. Nearby, Yuan Hua appeared increasingly uneasy. This water ape was a late Foundation establishment realm demon, and if Li Xuanfeng struggled or, worse, perished here, it would spell disaster for him. The pressure from Yuan Su, the Ning family, and the Li family was no small matter. After a moment's hesitation, he finally steeled himself and sent a message through a secret technique. Taoist, this demon is no small threat. Why not return what it seeks, make peace with both sides, and let the matter pass? Li Xuanfeng shook his head. He appreciated Yuan Hua's cautious suggestion, as the two clans had some rapport, and he replied kindly through the same secret technique. The Taoist master sent me to eliminate this demon. Yuan Hua immediately understood, nodding as he retreated and respectfully saying, if the Taoist needs anything, a call will bring us to the fight. Chapter 577, Two Arrows II. Li Xuanfeng gave a slight nod, not underestimating the demon's power but mindful that, with Yuan Su's instructions in mind, he had to handle this task alone first. He didn't dismiss Yuan Hua's offer of assistance outright. After only a few breaths, a white light appeared in the distance, drawing closer. It was indeed a massive water ape, its fur white with a metallic sheen, large enough to rival a building, with eyes as big as carriage wheels glowing a deep crimson. The water ape was a strange sight. Its white fur glinted with metallic tones as it surged forward on the waves, holding a massive pillar in its hands that looked like a formidable Dharma artifact. Landing at the edge of the island, it roared, "Old Yuan, you finally came to your senses. Not bad, not bad. Now let me come down and take a look." The water ape's voice rolled like thunder, reverberating above the island. Zhang Qian felt a tremor of fear, yet his eyes fixed on the middle-aged man before him, who finally drew his bowstring. Swish. From his quiver, an arrow leaped nimbly upward like a golden phoenix, obediently fitting itself onto the string. In that instant, everyone felt a prickling chill on their backs, as if their skin were being sliced by knives. The Foundation establishment realm cultivators managed to withstand it, but Zhang Qian stumbled back several steps, his lips cracking and dripping red blood. His face felt as if it would bleed, and he was inwardly terrified by the heavens. This Taoist wasn't bluffing. That bow, that arrow. Beside him, Yuan Hua was equally startled, frozen in shock for several breaths before realizing he needed to shield Zhang Qian. Both self-doubt and awe swirled in his mind. How could I have been so foolish? How could someone favored by a Taoist master be anything but formidable? With such mastery over the bowstring, there is likely no one else in the entire Yue state who could match him. Li Xuanfeng, fully focused, was oblivious to the reactions around him. His bowstring held steady, a gleaming golden arrow aimed skyward. With a calm release, he shouted, "Strike." The brilliant golden light vanished in an instant. Li Xuanfeng drew his bow once more, slowly rising on the wind to adjust his angle, squinting at the distant target. The water ape, still basking in its own arrogance, hadn't finished speaking when the island's great formation blazed into action again. Startled, the water ape stomped furiously as though being toyed with, roaring, "Yuan Hua." Before the ape could finish its angry tirade, pain tore through its left eye, and it shouted in shock, "How dare you? How could?" Arg! The water ape barely had time to raise a defensive light over its face before the arrow exploded with a thunderous blast. The massive demon let out an earth-shaking cry, sending seawater crashing upward as clouds scattered in all directions. Buzz! A slender thread of golden light shot back to its origin. The water ape recoiled rapidly, clutching its left eye as blood poured down like rain from the sky, dripping steadily. Zhang Qian wiped the silver-white beast blood from his face. The rain of blood that followed was blocked by the formation that had sprung up around them. He heard Yuan Hua beside him marvel, with just one strike, that old demon has already lost an eye. Looking up at the golden streak soaring across the sky, Zhang Qian felt for the first time a hazy glimpse of what mastery over weaponry truly meant. Excitedly, he remarked, "Everyone says weapon mastery falls short of immortal techniques, and immortal techniques are inferior to divine abilities. But now, it seems, it is not that weaponry is lacking, it is that those wielding them fall short. Ha ha ha." Yuan Hua laughed heartily, shaking his head. This Taoist comes from a family of sword immortals, though he is but one of their younger generation. If you had been born a few decades earlier and witnessed the likes of Li Tongyao the Celestial Moon Sword or Li Qijing the Kingsui Sword, that would show you the peak of weapon mastery. Even, Yuan Hua paused, reminiscing. Though he had never witnessed these figures himself, he had heard enough stories to last a lifetime. Watching the battle unfold in the sky as though admiring a fine scene, he recounted the tale of the sword that once cleaved Maha. This story was widely told in Yue State, though lesser known in the Eastern Sea. Those around listened in wonder, utterly amazed. Above the market, Li Xuanfeng's archery excelled in suddenness, with speed and immense power, often yielding effective results in just one strike. He wasn't surprised that his first arrow had injured the careless demon. Riding the wind, he pursued. The demon, now wounded, had only a dark, empty socket where its left eye once was, while its remaining eye glared with anger and visible shock, still shouting, "How is this possible? Who are you? How dare you? I am." At that point, the ape's expression changed, and its massive form began to shrink rapidly, deflating like a balloon. The water ape spat out several mercury jade tokens, dull and pale, which spun protectively around it. Buzz. The second arrow streaked through like a meteor, shattering the mercury jade token in front of him. The water ape let out a frenzied roar, spitting out a mouthful of blood, an immortal foundation technique. Impressive. Li Xuanfeng cast a glance at the arrow as it obediently returned to his quiver. The Mercury Jade token was a specialized spell crafted with immortal foundation energy. The arrow hadn't pierced the water ape directly, but had instead shattered the token before returning. Letter 1E5B, letter 1D41A, letter 1A a hatchik, letter 1A67. It has the flavor of a substitute death spell. Li Xuanfeng had battled countless demons in the southern border and was familiar with all manner of strange demon techniques. Unfazed, he drew his bow once more, releasing 2 arrows in quick succession. The water ape, which had spent years refining its 5 Mercury Jade tokens, was horrified that one had been shattered so quickly. In panic, it recited incantations to cast spells, but the golden arrow light came at it once again, forcing it to raise the remaining tokens in defense. Boom. The power of this arrow was not as overwhelming as before, only bursting in a flash before him. The water ape, gritting its teeth through the impact, suddenly paused, then broke into a grin. "So he cannot use that attack too often. Almost had me fooled." Just as the water ape prepared to recall its defensive spells, it was stunned to find that the clear light and protective energy before it had spread and was now forcefully pushing its spells aside, trapping them in an eddying vortex like mud. Buzz. Terrified, blood dripped from the water ape's ears and eyes. A sharp pain tore through its abdomen as a flash of golden light streaked by, opening a fist-sized wound that oozed silvery blood. "He's trying to kill me. He really means to kill me. This isn't just intimidation or a warning." Realization finally dawned upon the water ape. From the very start, it had fallen completely out of sync, losing its usual rhythm in combat. Coming alone to this island, it had played directly into its opponent's hands, responding to strength with its own weaknesses. It had taken 2 arrows from an unknown powerhouse, and its strength was already halved. The water ape excelled at stealth, underwater movement, sea control, and spell manipulation. All these skills, along with its 18 secret arts and demon control talismans, had been rendered useless, leaving it with significant injuries. The water ape was well connected and understood the significance of what it was facing. Seeing that someone from the Azure Pond Devil Gate was determined to take its life, it muttered, "Master. The master cannot even protect himself, has given up on this old ape. No wonder, no wonder." Activating its immortal foundation to the fullest, it began to fade from view, disappearing into thin air, yet its spirit was utterly crushed. Feeling hollow and icy, it looked at the figure before it, a man clad in black gold armor whose face was obscured. A mixture of pain and a deep, cold despair filled its heart. Today this old ape shall meet its end here. Chapter 578, 100 Li of Cinnabar I. The water ape's fur rippled as it came to a sudden realization, its thoughts abruptly clearing. "No wonder a mere minor cultivator was able to steal my treasure. I thought he was just some ignorant child from a family clan, but it turns out he is tied to a thread of fate." From the moment I resolved to retrieve the treasure, I had already set foot on a path to death. The water ape's bloodline was unique. It had started its life guarding the gates of the water mansion and later took up responsibility for overseeing a section of the sea. Yet it had always been nostalgic for its former master. Now, faced with this situation, it thought bitterly, "The master can't even protect me, so he must be in dire straits, and I deserve this misfortune." Blinded as I was, I failed to see that the thief was someone tied to fate. Well, so be it, so be it. It concealed its form and darted swiftly through the seawater. Li Xuanfeng, anticipating this tactic, showed no sign of haste. Calmly, he brushed his waist, and a palm-sized blue mirror flew out. It was the glimmering inquiry mirror. Blue light streamed from the mirror's surface, sweeping across the waves. This time, it moved much faster than when searching for Zhang Qian, quickly illuminating a blue tail flame in the water. Li Xuanfeng knocked another arrow and drew his bow. This demon has lost its will to fight. It has figured things out. Such a waste for someone with late-stage foundation establishment realm cultivation to die here. The water ape, just a li away, felt a chill run through its body, its gray-white fur bristling. It wasn't surprised and spat out a few more mercury jade tokens, which began to orbit protectively around its body. This man reeks of killing intent. His hands must have ended many demons. He's one of those weapons wielded by the Taoist masters. Its ears buzzed as another streak of golden light pierced through the air and struck its body, only to vanish into the distant horizon. Intense pain spread through its torso. The water ape let out a deafening roar, enduring the agony as it fled aimlessly across the sea. Flying several li on the wind, it sensed its immortal foundation trembling, and realization dawned: I'm under some kind of spell. Though it hadn't fought Li Xuanfeng head-on for long, the ape had already lost its footing, overtaken by deep panic. It lacked even the courage to turn back and fight, leaving it paralyzed by its own fear. Realizing this, its heart sank. Yet just as it came to this understanding, another golden arrow streaked through the air, shattering another mercury jade token into shards of radiant light scattered across the sky. In the brief moment after the arrow struck, the water ape seized the opportunity to form hand seals, summoning streams of grayish-white light. Complex patterns interwove, forming triangular and pentagonal shapes inscribed with runic text. Treasure Talisman White Inquiry Technique. The ape's cultivation of the secret white mercury was an ancient, immortal foundation technique, rooted in the whole pill essence and specializing in spellcraft. Once the inquiry spell was activated, the 3 remaining mercury jade tokens floated upward and pointed toward a single direction. The water ape rode the waves, heading in that direction with determination. The wound on its abdomen squirmed and slowly closed, as the secret white mercury technique granted it robust physical regeneration. Though it had been struck by multiple arrows, the injuries were less severe than they appeared. Immersed in the sea, its breathing and movements continuously healed its wounds. It traveled swiftly over the waves, and after enduring another arrow, finally located the golden-armored figure amid the stormy seas and oppressive clouds. The figure in black gold armor was dazzling even in the pouring rain. A helmet covered his face, concealing his features entirely. The water ape did not waste words. Instead, it charged forward in silence, its hands rapidly expanding in size until they were as large as doors, reaching out to grab the armored figure. Li Xuanfeng, seeing the water ape coming for him, nodded slightly. The demon, despite its many spells and balanced capabilities, lacked significant weaknesses, making it difficult to kill outright. He watched the attack approach, calm and unhurried, lightly adjusting the lower corner of his longbow. The water ape noticed the lack of evasive action and felt a chill run down its spine. He must have something up his sleeve, but no matter what, I can't let him keep firing those arrows. Gritting its teeth, it pressed forward, silver-white light emanating from its palms, a clear sign of immortal foundation techniques bolstered by spellcraft. Li Xuanfeng, completely unfazed, let his black gold armor flare with radiant light as he punched straight into the water ape's enormous palm. Boom! A thunderous explosion echoed across the sky, ricocheting through the dark clouds. Li Xuanfeng met the attack head-on, retreating only half a step before pulling back and swinging his longbow forcefully toward the water ape's head. The water ape, stunned that its blow had been matched, faltered for a moment, its thoughts in disarray. What kind of immortal foundation is this? Such immense strength. Or is he not even human? Could he be some sort of demon himself? Arsadilla letter 1d622, new O symbol 34d letter 1d41b, E circumflex S circumflex. Though the ape was inexperienced in close combat, it was still a demon. It hesitated briefly, but a silvery white shield appeared over its face. However, the heavy strike from Li Xuanfeng's bow shattered the shield with a deafening crash, sending the ape plummeting into the sea. The shimmering shield flickered briefly before disintegrating entirely. Buzz! Before it could recover, another streak of golden light hurtled toward it. The water ape let out a mournful cry as yet another mercury jade token exploded into fragments, forcing it to cough up a mouthful of silvery blood. The water ape broke through the surface of the ocean, its remaining eye narrowing as it spotted the distant golden figure of Li Xuanfeng, who appeared like a shimmering speck of gold. The great bow in his hands unfurled like massive golden wings, another brilliant streak of light already aimed and heading its way. Despair gripped the water ape's heart. It cursed inwardly, if only the celestial screen of azure patterns hadn't been taken by that wretched brat, I wouldn't be in this pitiful state. Not even a single defensive artifact left to my name. In the brief skirmish, the water ape realized the sheer precision of this man's archery, seamlessly combined with his artifacts, techniques, and spells. It was a combination that seemed almost unbeatable. Without sufficient defensive artifacts, incredible speed to flee far beyond his range, or a secure cave dwelling to hide in, the ape knew it was doomed to a slow and inevitable death. Gritting its teeth, the ape flew through the air, heading toward the golden figure. 2 remaining mercury jade tokens hovered protectively before it, as its hands formed intricate gestures. Around it, the seawater began to condense into orbs resembling jade beads. Treasure Talisman Horizon Escape Technique. Realizing that fighting was futile and running would only prolong its suffering, the ape resorted to its escape technique. Its massive, fan-like palms came together as it cast the spell. From the distance, Li Xuanfeng noticed the ape's actions and smoothly drew his bowstring. Hum hum hum. A piercing hum filled the air, growing in intensity. The water ape's ears began to bleed from the sound as a streak of golden light shot toward it like a blazing comet. Damn it! A brilliant explosion of golden light erupted before the ape, scattering its protective jade tokens. The radiant energy disrupted its spells, leaving its defenses entangled in the oppressive clear light. 5 more streaks of golden light swiftly followed, converging upon it. A deafening roar shook the heavens. The ocean's surface erupted in a towering white geyser, silver mercury droplets intermingling with the spray. Black-blue steam hissed as it evaporated, creating a cacophony of crackling sounds. The ape's remaining jade tokens shattered under the relentless assault, leaving it grievously injured. Its internal organs felt as if they had been torn apart, its limbs splintering like shattered glass, before dissolving into fragments under the intense radiance. Crash. Chapter 579, 100 Li of Cinnabar, II. As the seawater rained back down, a deep and foreboding silence settled over the ocean. Only the soft patter of raindrops on the surface could be heard. Li Xuanfeng remained steady, bow drawn and ready. A veteran of countless battles, he knew better than to assume the beast was dead. Sure enough, moments later, a streak of white light shot upward from the ocean, soaring like a gull toward the horizon. But another arrow was already loosed, striking the white light dead center and shattering it into a mist of crimson. Red rain cascaded from the heavens as Li Xuanfeng approached, his dark armor glinting ominously. The crimson mist spread, staining the sky and ocean alike with its vibrant hue. The crimson mist spread across the sky, thick and vibrant, like fresh blood dripping into water, rapidly diffusing outward. Against the backdrop of pitch-black storm clouds, it created an unsettlingly horrific sight, enveloping the sea and the heavens above in a suffocating red hue. A resounding boom shattered the silence as a bright silver lightning bolt streaked across the sky. Li Xuanfeng raised his hand, the black-gold gauntlet he wore now tainted with streaks of crimson, giving it an even fiercer and more menacing appearance. Cinnabar, he muttered. The expansive crimson fog blanketed an area of 100 li in every direction. Even the market island nearby was dusted with this eerie red powder. The blood-colored mist blotted out the sky and sun, dyeing the sea an unnerving shade of red. Fish leaped and thrashed about in agitation, their movements creating ripples across the stained waters. The water ape had tried to shield its head with mana, intending to use its escape technique to flee. However, it was struck down by Li Xuanfeng's arrow, its body dissolving into a vast expanse of cinnabar that concealed the heavens. Mercury-like droplets hovered amidst the crimson mist, propelled by residual mana, their translucent white-gray brilliance shimmering in the red haze. The scene was a breathtaking yet chilling spectacle of red mist interspersed with silver sparks. Li Xuanfeng lingered briefly amid this strange phenomenon. As he moved toward the water, his thoughts churned, calcined smoke rising, cinnabar transmuting to mercury. The fact that the secret white mercury technique leaves 100 li of cinnabar upon death is consistent enough. He descended into the water, finding the entire area transformed into a crimson realm. Everything in sight was bathed in red. Retrieving the glimmering inquiry mirror, he scanned the seafloor, revealing coral reefs and gleaming treasures scattered across the depths. Carefully, he summoned and collected the scattered artifacts and weapons. When he finally surfaced, the scene above had turned lively. Numerous cultivators were riding the wind, busily working to gather the cinnabar. Some wielded bellows to blow away the mist, while others used jade bottles to collect the reddish seawater. The air was filled with activity and commotion. The moment Li Xuanfeng, clad in his black gold armor, emerged from the water, the bustling crowd froze. Silence fell as the cultivators quickly lowered their heads, halting their actions and bowing deeply. Junior cultivators greet the Taoist. They murmured deferentially. Although the water ape's strength was inferior to Li Xuanfeng's, its cultivation level was undeniably profound. Its death had transformed its remains into valuable spirit materials, possibly useful even for Qi cultivators, prompting a frenzy among the gathered crowd. Li Xuanfeng, however, paid no attention to their clamor. With a calm sweep of his gaze across the scene, he rode the wind and departed. As soon as he was out of sight, the crowd erupted into chaos. Some hurriedly fanned the cinnabar-laden air with bellows, while others scooped up the red-stained seawater into jade bottles. Every now and then, someone would exclaim in awe, "A late-stage Foundation Establishment Realm demon, taken down just like that." After the intense battle, Li Xunfeng felt his mana significantly depleted, though he was far less fatigued than when he had previously slain a monk from dozens of li away. This time, the combat had been close range, no more than 5 or 6 li, greatly reducing the strain on his mana and stamina. Landing atop his flying shuttle into the market town, he saw that the cinnabar left behind by the water ape's demise had already been entirely scavenged by the crowd. The only remnants of the frenzy were faint red traces in roof beams and stone pits, hinting at the chaos that had just transpired. Standing at the forefront was Yuan Hua, whose respect now came from the heart. Bowing deeply, he greeted with an overly courteous tone, "We pay our respects to the Taoist. Congratulations on your triumphant slaying of the demon. Your divine abilities and overwhelming mana command admiration and gratitude from us all." Letter 1D633 Alpha and Besh Li Xunfeng gave a faint nod and motioned for the crowd to disperse. Gesturing toward Zhang Qian, he said in a firm tone, "Disperse. Zhang Qian, follow me." From a corner, Zhang Qian quickly stepped forward with visible reverence. Cupping his fist, he said, "My gratitude to the Taoist, for saving my life and slaying the demon." Li Xunfeng walked into the opulent main hall, pausing before a beautifully constructed spring altar, where spirit springs gushed ceaselessly. Gazing at it, he shook his head and replied, "No need for thanks. I came specifically to slay the demon. Your fortune merely aligned with my purpose." Zhang Qian seemed somewhat uneasy and stood respectfully to the side, saying, "My fortune has indeed always been good, but your rescue is undeniable. I will always remember it. Without your help, I would eventually have been dragged off this island by the demon. Such fortune indeed. To steal a Foundation Establishment Realm demon's treasure, escape unscathed, and have someone clean up the mess for you." Li Xunfeng thought. He waved dismissively and remarked, "I see your cultivation is on the verge of breaking through." Zhang Qian hesitated before responding, "Your insight is as sharp as ever, senior. I was indeed planning to find a secluded place to break through to the Foundation Establishment Realm." Without showing any emotion, Li Xunfeng nodded, "There is no need for elaborate plans. Since my task here is complete, I will soon head to Spleetard Island to report back. If you wish, remain on this island and complete your breakthrough before leaving." Zhang Qian appeared momentarily surprised, as if he had more to say, but upon seeing Li Xunfeng gesture dismissively, he bowed slightly and replied, "Thank you, senior." He quickly retreated. Watching him leave, Li Xunfeng reflected, "Zhang Qian is cautious. Leaving this connection as incidental and unforced inspires trust. If I were to impose a grand life-saving debt, it would only breed suspicion and unnecessary entanglements." The water ape's remains had scattered into mercury blood and fragments of its belongings. Most of its pills had rolled into the sea, likely benefiting the sea beasts below, while much of its other treasures had been damaged, leaving behind only a few items of value. Among these were a luminous white harmonic noonstone, several heavy pieces of ocean resonance mercury, and 2 emerald blue threadlink jade pieces, all materials for crafting Dharma artifacts. Aside from these moderately valuable finds, the rest were insignificant trinkets. There might have been talismans or similar items, but none of high grade, and many had been shredded during the fight. Unfortunately, it carried no cultivation methods on its person. Then again, who would travel carrying their techniques? Li Xunfeng thought of the many demons he had slain. The water ape had been among the most formidable, with an ancient immortal foundation, balanced strengths in all areas, and mastery over concealment, survival, and offensive spells. Yet its techniques remained out of reach. Such a formidable beast, and yet it lacked a Foundation Establishment Realm Dharma artifact for protection. After a moment of thought, Li Xunfeng speculated that Zhang Qian might have stolen something significant. The ape's extreme agitation suggested as much. Despite claiming it had only been medicinal herbs, what had truly been taken was a mystery known only to Zhang Qian and the water ape. Gathering the scattered treasures, he summoned Yuan Hua to issue a few parting instructions. Not wishing to linger near Zhang Qian and risk any further complications, Li Xunfeng swiftly took to the skies, transforming into a streak of light as he headed southward. Chapter 580, Yuan Su's Intentions. Li Xunfeng flew for half a day, using the water veins to traverse for quite a while before Spleetard Island appeared in view. Breaking through the sea surface, he landed in the marketplace. Li Xuanfeng scanned his surroundings. The marketplace was eerily empty, devoid of people. It was a mess with clear signs of fighting and spells clashing everywhere. Occasionally, he spotted a few disciples of the Azure Pond sect, all silent and withdrawn. Frowning without a word, he swiftly rode the wind toward the main hall. The grand hall of the marketplace was resplendent with gold and jade, its highest point shimmering with streams of light and defensive formations. As Li Xuanfeng walked a few steps, he noticed that the usual guards were absent, which deepened his suspicion. Even Ning Heiyuan is nowhere to be found. What has happened here? He stepped into the hall and immediately saw a man in azure robes seated on the white jade throne. The man's cheeks were slightly rounded, and his eyebrows long. His calm eyes carried an unquestionable sense of authority. He lounged against the throne, his jade-like fingers lightly holding a small golden jade seal. His other hand rested on the armrest, rhythmically tapping it. Kneeling below him in splendid robes was Ning Heiyuan, his head pressed to the ground, trembling visibly. His legs were tightly joined, and he remained silent, like a statue. Li Xuanfeng took a step forward. The radiant mana of his black gold armor shimmered as he bowed, his head lowered as he said in a soft voice, "Xuanfeng greets the Taoist master." The man before him was none other than Taoist master Yuansu, Ning Tianxiao himself. As Li Xuanfeng kneeled, he cast a glance at Ning Heiyuan. The latter's eyes were shut tight, his forehead dripping with sweat, leaving the jade floor damp. Whatever Yuansu had told him earlier must have left him thoroughly shaken. Taoist master Yuansu smiled faintly, giving Li Xuanfeng a once-over before speaking. "The black tiger eyes has been in my possession for a long time. Its sharpness and weight make it too taxing for most to wield. I have kept it hidden in the clan for ages. It seems a good fit for you." Li Xuanfeng cupped his fist in thanks, barely able to utter polite words before Yuansu continued casually, "These younger members of the Ning family are also inept. While you are stationed here, teach these juniors a lesson or two so they do not end up causing any trouble." Li Xuanfeng humbly replied that he dared not refuse. Taoist master Yuansu chuckled, nodding as he added, "You have done well in this matter." Hearing this, Li Xuanfeng realized that his efforts had been acknowledged, and his earlier deductions about the situation were largely correct. He allowed himself a moment of relief. Yuansu glanced at Ning Heiyuan and then back at Li Xuanfeng, praising him, to detect irregularities, recognize the workings of fate, and identify these fated ones, all while knowing how to strike a balance between forming ties and avoiding entanglements. This is the path to safety and wisdom. Li Xuanfeng understood that Yuansu was using his commendation as an indirect reprimand for Ning Heiyuan. He remained silent while Ning Heiyuan finally muttered, "This junior has learned his lesson." Yuansu rose from the jade throne, his hands clasped behind his back as he coldly remarked, "If I had not arrived in time, you would have thoroughly disgraced the Ning family. Do you even understand what qualifies as destiny or who these destined individuals are?" Ning Heiyuan dared not breathe too loudly. Li Xuanfeng pondered silently. Yuansu glanced once more at Ning Heiyuan and said firmly, "Leave, reflect on this thoroughly." Ning Heiyuan nodded, murmured his thanks, and left with heavy steps. Yuansu exhaled, turning to Li Xuanfeng. "This child is still young. Though he has improved somewhat through the years of tempering, his vision remains too narrow. With Ning Wan focused on cultivation and unable to spare the effort, I will need you to keep an eye on matters here." Li Xuanfeng vaguely understood the nature of Ning Heiyuan's mistakes. Considering the Ning family's aid, he spoke softly, "Taoist master, please do not be too angry. The working's fates are enigmatic. Not all fault lies with Heiyuan." Hearing his plea, Yuansu huffed, but his stern expression softened considerably. He spoke warmly, "You were born with great strength, a rare gift of the heavens. Coupled with your extraordinary acuity, you are a natural talent for the bow. Well done. I once met a Buddhist cultivator in the north during a visit. He, too, was endowed with immense strength greater even than yours. He later became the Merciful One's Vajra guardian, quite a formidable figure." Yuansu mentioned it casually, and Li Xuanfeng listened in silence. The azure-robed Taoist master pondered for a moment before suddenly speaking, "Yunwu will not miss the Green Pine Temple, and Yu Muxian will definitely go there." Li Xuanfeng was slightly taken aback, then lowered his gaze and replied, "Thank you, Taoist master." Ning Tianxiao fixed his gaze on him and spoke softly, "In Green Pine Temple, divine abilities cannot interfere. If something truly happens to you, I will not be able to intervene. Though Yuanwu has cultivation, he cannot match me, but I still cannot confront him over trivialities." Li Xuanfeng bowed deeply and replied, "Xuanfeng understands." Yuansu nodded lightly and said gently, "I know your heart is with your family. If this mission succeeds, you should consider it as putting the past to rest. Settle down and focus on cultivation. Letter 1D597 Letter 1F00 as Hachek Aslik Shunfeng prostrated himself in gratitude. By the time he rose, the azure-robed Taoist master had already traversed the great void and disappeared. The suffocating pressure that had lingered around him vanished as well. Li Shunfeng stood, his expression contemplative. It seems Yuan Su understands the feud between my family and the Yu family. He wants me to kill Yu Muxian, allowing my family to annex Moongaze Lake, which would settle the debt with the Li family once and for all. Yuan Su's intentions were clear. While outwardly saying he could do nothing if something happened to Li Shunfeng in the Grotto Heaven, he was subtly implying that if Yu Muxian fell, Yuanwu would also have no grounds for retaliation. Furthermore, Yuan Su, although at the early Purple Mansion realm, was evidently stronger than Yuanwu at the mid-stage. He could easily cover for Li Shunfeng if things escalated. If a direct confrontation arose, Yuanwu would ultimately fall short against Ning Tianxiao. Yuan Su, truly remarkable. Li Shunfeng had only vaguely heard of Yuan Su's Jade Seal, an ancient spirit artifact of extraordinary power, but he had not realized that Yuan Su could so openly dismiss Yuanwu's prowess. It was no wonder other Taoist masters rarely left their mountains and diligently guarded their sects, while Yuan Su could act freely in the southern border. This demon-slaying mission had concealed layers of trials, from interpreting Yuan Su's intentions to handling the threads of fate tied to the fated ones, and finally showcasing his strength by slaying the demon without allowing it to escape. Clearly, Yuan Su had been assessing Li Shunfeng's abilities in all aspects. As he pondered, Li Shunfeng slowly walked out of the grand hall. Ning Heiyuan was waiting outside, his expression a mix of shock and trepidation. He shook his head with a bitter smile and said, "Thank you, brother-in-law." The grand hall had not been closed, and the conversation within could naturally be overheard. Ning Heiyuan had caught snippets while leaving earlier. Li Shunfeng was not surprised and merely asked, "What happened?" Ning Heiyuan appeared deeply regretful, his demeanor downcast as he said, "Somehow greed overtook me. I tried to snatch a treasure away from a fated one. I got the treasure, but the look of hatred in his eyes. They have certainly borne a grudge against me. I see." Li Shunfeng's thoughts aligned closely with this explanation. He nodded slightly. Ning Heiyuan continued, "I had just secured the treasure in my hands when the Taoist master emerged from the great void and turned that person into a mist of blood. Only then did I realize the gravity of my mistake, but it was already too late. Who knows how much longer I will be stuck in this wretched place."